I have one of those sample pens with my company.
I had one of those.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals public meetings for Monday, February 29th, 2016. Before we get to the public hearings portion of the meeting, there's a few house cleaning items that we need to take care of. But once we do get to the public hearings, the procedures will be, I will read the appeal into the minutes. The applicant will then come up to the table, tell us what they want, why they want it. If you're here for a variance, it is incumbent upon you to tell us what your hardship is. That is the hurdle for us to be able to grant you a variance. Some of us up here may or may not have some questions. Once we are done, I will open it up to the floor if anyone else has any questions. First order of business is review and approve minutes. Has everyone had a chance?
Yes. Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Is that your room? And this would be yours. Our second is to approve and sign bills. We have three bills that need approval. One is $305 to the T&G for the January 25th legal notices. The second is $6,200 to Conley & Associates for the traffic peer review. And the third is for $6,622 to Graves Engineering for the site plan peer review. Just as an aside, the Conley Associates and Graves Engineering are actually paid for out of escrow by the applicant on that for the project.
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? I only see two. I only see two. Oh, okay. Okay. The same. Okay. Our first 6:30 appeal is to hear the appeal of Joseph Kavassian, 81 Worthington Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the town of Shrewsbury.
There's the continued hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 173 South Street, which is continued from our meeting on January 25th. Variances on a common driveway, grade, location, and drainage. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. Good evening.
Good evening.
As Richard Ricker for the petitioner, do you want us to set up the boards again so you can see them again?
Sure.
I know we went through this last time.
Yeah, can't hurt. Yeah, yeah.
If you can just give us a minute to get set up.
Sure.
Give him.
It's a different forum.
What's that?
Different form.
Yeah. Calling for what's that? Oh, he could make it?
Yeah, he said he could make it.
Oh, tonight? No, I'm talking about tonight.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, he's got to do
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, to repeat myself, my name is Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney here representing JEKN LLC. Mr. Norman, to my right, is one of the principals of that LLC, and to my left is John Grenier, who is our engineer of record. Basically, you recall from last month, we had requested variances based on the desire of the applicant to build a common driveway instead of three separate driveways, which he could build as of right at this particular location on South Street. We showed you the plans, but if John wants to go through them again, you can see right in front of you is the common driveway plan. That's showing your common drive approximately 55 feet from the center line of lamplighter, which is one of the requests for variance that we're asking for, because that is supposed to be 100 feet according to the bylaws. That request would not be necessary if there were 3 separate driveways running down at this particular location. The second request, as you recall, was to exceed the grade, which for a common driveway is 8%, and the grade of this particular common driveway is 12%. Again, this would not be a requirement. We're just the single driveway situation that we talked about. And the third was for a variance to increase the post-development runoff in the 100-year storm event, which I couldn't really explain to you what that meant, but which you heard from Mr. Grenier last time, and which has been the subject of a peer review, which was done at our expense since the last meeting. And I believe you may have a couple of letters in your file about that peer review, and there was a follow-up letter as recently as today to tell you that, I believe, if I can paraphrase that letter, I believe that it addressed most, if not all, of the questions that were raised by the first peer review letter. Basically, this is born out of the topography, as I stated the last time we were here. The hardship is the topography of the site. There are 3 lots showing on this plan. I know that you've received some correspondence about whether this should be 3 lots or 2 lots. I would respectfully suggest to you that that really doesn't matter to us. It matters to us, but it doesn't matter to us in terms of this request, because it's a common drive. Whether it's a common drive for 2 lots or 3 lots, I would respectfully suggest that that should not be your concern. The concern should be whether or not you want the safety mechanisms put into place because of a common driveway at this location, rather than having multiple driveways come down without the drainage and the other safety factors addressed as they are by these plans. John, if you wanted to show the 3 driveways again, just so you recall from, and I know that there's been, as I say, correspondence, and I know that the basis of that, the suggestion in that correspondence is that one of these lots does not have sufficient frontage. So, but that's, I would suggest again respectfully, a matter for, frankly, another board or another time. So, as you can see on this particular driveway, John, you can point out there's 3 separate driveways coming out at that location. Those driveways do not need any of the drainage or other safety factors involved. There's drainage, as you can see on this plan, in at least 3 different places that's added in order to do the common drive. So, and with that, I know this is a continuation from last month, so I've repeated myself enough, I think.
Anyone? No? You got anything?
Mr. Ricker,
Yes, sir.
you're saying the hardship is the land?
I am.
Okay. Has the hardship been made by the proponent?
Not unless you were to suggest that he built the hill there. I mean, it's topographical. These are lots that have been laid out in accordance with our zoning in Shrewsbury, whether you like it or not. And the hardship is purely topographical because of the slope on the side of that hill for driveways coming down the hill. Again, I think that the hardship causes drainage issue there, and I think the drainage issue is apparent, and I think that the hydrology calculations and the comments of the peer review, as well as the calculations from our engineer bear that out, that there is clearly a drainage issue caused by that hillside. And I don't think that's of our making, but I suppose you could make that argument about most variances, but I think this is clearly topographical, Mr. Gordon.
Okay. I'm all set.
You're all good. Assuming that there's hardships involved on the grade and the curb cut, what's the ramifications on the 100-year storm event if you don't get if you're not granted a variance on that?
Good question. Maybe John can answer that.
The ramifications are that we can hold back the water through the 25-year storm event because of the steep slopes on the site. There really are not as many good places to put detention basins to try to capture the runoff from the site. We have 3 areas here that are chosen. Once you get to the top of the hill, you're not capturing that much water because you're at the top of the hill. So they need to be down gradient from areas that are being developed and paved. So we have 3 spots here that we can capture. There are limited places to capture the water. So with that said, we can capture and hold back the majority of the storms, except the 100-year storm is much more difficult. You have huge basins, which you really can't make up grade if basins get too big. That's why we chose smaller basins. As soon as you start to get a bigger basins, with the slopes, you can't catch up to grade, down gradient from them. So we chose 3 areas down gradient that we were able to actually capture the water. To take that one step further, if we were to go with 3 individual driveways, in the area of the common driveway, you'd have double the pavement. Instead of one 18-foot wide driveway, you'd have 3 12-foot wide driveways. You'd have triple the pavement with no requirement to hold it back. So just to look at the entire picture, we did a quick calculation of what the increase in runoff would be in the 100-year storm event with double the pavement in the area of the common driveway and no detention. We'd be increasing it to almost 3.5 CFS above existing conditions. So it's just a modest increase in the 100-year with the common driveway.
Define modest.
We'd be
What's
increasing
modest?
Significantly. What's that?
Define modest.
Let me look at my summary sheet. We're increasing it by under 3 CFS, but we're increasing it by over almost 3.5 CFS without it. And this was a question in Graves Engineering in their review. We are reducing the volume of water in all storm events, definitely. So we may have a peak that is a little bit higher in the 100-year, but we're holding back the volume. We're reducing the volume of water. We may have a higher peak, but the overall volume of water is being reduced through all storm events, if that makes sense.
Which points to the improvement that we've been talking about, which
I
is why
get
this
that.
is improving a drainage situation.
I get why you like the common driveway. I don't have an issue with that. Well, I don't know that I don't have an issue with it, but in terms of your logic, I understand that. You know, the less pavement, things like that. But I'm still not convinced on the 100-year storm event. What? Go ahead.
As a responsible developer, if the variance for the common driveway wasn't granted, what would the developer do to keep the water runoff into the properties downhill from the proposed developed homes?
I don't know. We haven't discussed it.
Don't you think that should have been discussed So we would,
Well, frankly, I don't think so, because I think this is a very simple discussion. This is a much better situation than single driveways would be, and this is a safety issue. And I don't think that this is very hard to grasp as far as the safety issue goes here. I think clearly this is a safety issue. And
don't you think it's a
and
safety
rather
issue,
than have
no matter
water
which
come
way
out
you
of
go, if it's a common driveway or 3 driveways, you have the same amount of traffic coming out into that intersection, no matter which way you do it?
on less pavement and with less drainage issue, yes. I mean, this is the best alternative. There's no question, I don't think, in anybody's engineering mind. I mean, and as far as engineering goes, hey, they're smarter than me. So, I mean, this is the best alternative. I don't think that there's any doubt.
No. And just when we were looking at the development of these sites, I mean, to be frank, most builders and developers, the less amount of red tape and permitting, they tend to avoid it. In this case, I had a conversation with my client that this is clearly, it's worth the process to do this. And he agreed and said, let's go through the process. This definitely makes more sense in the bigger picture for this property. So that's what prompted us to move forward with this process.
Thank you. You okay?
I'm also-
You open?
Yep.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Please state your name for the record.
Dan Morgado, 11 Concord Road. I sent a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals
Yes.
on this matter. I wonder if you could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Letter received February 3rd. Dear Mr. Rosen, I have seen the appeal application of JEKN LLC for property located on South Street, now before the ZBA. I find the request for a variance for the location of the common drive within 55 feet of the center line of Lamplighter Drive, the 12% driveway grade and variance from the post-development runoff in the 100-year storm is unnecessary and detrimental to the community. If granted by the ZBA, it will be the taxpayers of Shrewsbury and area residents and abutters that will deal with the very negative externalities of the project while the developer is long gone from the community. I have watched the development of this parcel in recent years with a growing concern over the total lack of a coherent plan. I use this location as an illustration of what happens when a parcel is developed for the sake of developer rather than offering any benefit to residents and the community at large. Once the glow of the new home purchase fades, the reality of oddly configured lots, the access easement on top of access easement, and excessive topography with runoff comes home to roost. I also understand there is a serious question of frontage for one of the lots in question that I will be exploring further, and no permits will be issued by the building inspector or highway department until this matter is resolved. The town has a property interest on an adjoining parcel that I will suggest to the Board of Selectmen it exercise fully. Thank you for your consideration. Any comment, response?
Well,
Oh, sure.
I think I would like to summarize that. What you just heard is basically you're being asked to approve something that's poor because the alternative is the developer is going to do something worse. And I think that's a condition that the Zoning Board of Appeals should reject. You know, that parcel has been developed in an extremely haphazard fashion. We've all been by it. It's an example of just development for the sake of development. And I think that if they want to develop according to the zoning bylaw, they should do that. But they should not do that by variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
the only thing I could say is that it's one thing to point at a development like this and say, well, over the years I've looked at it, and this is a great example of bad zoning. And that's what I think Mr. Morgado is suggesting to you. It's a bad development because the people that developed it took advantage of the zoning and are building houses on it. That is a zoning issue. That is an issue where the horse unfortunately, or frankly, the horse is out of the barn here. There's houses being built up there. There's house lots to be built. There's going to be 3 driveways, 2 driveways, or 1. So it's one thing to point at it after the fact and say, bad zoning. That's a great example of bad zoning. But again, the horse is out of the barn, and I just think that I think that it is unfortunate. I got involved in this. I can suggest to you, honestly, I got involved because I agreed with the people that came to me, the client, when he said that, and when John said that this is better safety-wise than what they could do with 3 separate driveways. And I firmly believe that. I do not doubt it. And I think this is a safety issue. And I think that, for whatever reasons, someone could suggest that this is unnecessary and detrimental to the community. I don't see it. This is solving a drainage issue that will be caused by separate driveways.
I think the argument being made is if you don't get a variance, you have a saleable property.
Both house lots are sold. So,
Right, I understand
so the
that,
answer
but,
is
yeah.
the answer is yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's unfortunate that there are hard feelings about this particular development. Many of us went by this development over the years and saw it and said, wow, houses up there. I did too, but the facts are the facts. And, you're faced with a question of whether to help a situation or just ignore it. And that's what the drainage issue is here. And as far as the other letter you got from that addresses the 3 lots, I don't even think that needs to be addressed here.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else?
I'm all set.
You all set? Anybody else wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir, please state your name for the record.
David King, Ryan Road. So I think my comments can be certainly much briefer given the comments put in the record by Mr. Morgado's letter. I don't think it could be better said in terms of the safety concerns and building for the sake of building. This project's been going on for upwards of 8 years, as we talked about at the last meeting. So from my perspective as a town resident for close to 20 years, there's absolutely no excuse, engineering or otherwise, that answers to questions that are being raised tonight aren't fully vetted and fully thought through. So when I hear responses that say, we haven't thought about it, I find that hard to imagine. So the reason I bring that up is respectfully because these hardships that we're talking about, the 3 in particular, I think are due to the number of lots we're trying to put on a hill that should have never had that many houses allowed. So whether that's bad building zone code or what you want to call it, some of the hardships can go away if you build 2 lots. That's why I'd like to see when and if we're going to resolve whether or not there are actually the ability to build 3 houses up there or only 2. I know Attorney Richter wants to keep putting that off to a different discussion.
That's outside our purview.
Outside of this discussion,
Yeah.
however, is paramount to the discussion. Build 2 houses up there. Don't the problems go away? Build 2 driveways. Then you don't have 3 driveways of 12 feet times 300 feet. That's an issue of asphalt, decreased by 1/3. Can't you decrease the amount of water runoff by 1/3 because you've got a lot more land space up there? Apparently, maybe we're trying to build too many houses for the amount of space and the topography that's been there for eons. That should have been vetted and figured out in the first 3 months of an investigative engineering design process, I think. So I disagree respectfully with the idea that that's a different discussion for a different time in terms of consideration for this board as to whether any variances or hardships should be given. I think the hardships are only there because of how many houses we're trying to put on the hill that's very steep.
Thank you.
And again, the letter I think is extremely articulate to the other concerns of safety.
Anybody else? Do you want to address? You're good? Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard on this? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Joseph Kavarchin, 81 Worthington Ave, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7-C to construct a barn in the front yard in the Residence B2 district. The property is located at 224 to 228 South Quinsigamon Avenue. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 76-1.
How you doing?
Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Jeff Passion, my father Joe.
Okay.
I
Have a
was
seat.
speaking to
Yep.
the family. Do I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what we wanted, do you guys have that? Okay. So I guess my hardship is, I guess how it's stated, we want to put a barn in the front yard
Right.
of what we really call the backyard if you live on the lake. You know, it's kind of, it's a little bit reversed, but, you know, we're well within the setbacks. We're not changing any of the grades or topography. It's a nice open lot. And there was a barn there. My great-grandparents had a barn there 75, 80 years ago on the property. We just want to bring one back. And the word barn, it's really like a fancy barn. I mean, it's a garage that looks like a barn, so it'll fit the neighborhood and whatnot. So I don't know what else to say, but I guess that's my hardship. You know, actually putting, I guess Patty told me, the building inspector's office told me, you cannot put a structure in the front yard.
Correct.
So that's really why I'm here. But if you look at the lot, the setbacks, we're well within the setbacks, and it's a large, unutilized spot.
Okay.
What is this barn going to be used for?
Storage of boats, lawnmowers, old cars. Really, that's it.
Okay.
Do you have any plans of what the barn is going to look like? Or?
Yeah. I don't have one of those thingamajigs, but I can show you.
Do we have to keep the plan there?
So just, you know, if you see the inside.
Do we have a set of these?
I don't think we do.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
You don't want to get too close to the table.
This isn't my cup of tea, but who wants them?
Just,
Well,
we could pass it and people can take a look at it.
I mean, you know, so here's the inside. If you tab through, it'll show the outside, the elevation. I mean, nothing will change. You know,
Is this an extra set?
yeah. Any questions?
Have you filed these with the building inspector?
Not yet.
Okay.
I guess I have to come. She's looked at them.
Right.
And the second story, what's that going to be used
Just
for?
storage. Just storage.
So it's not going to be any usable living space or
It
anything?
could be someday, but no plans right now. None whatsoever. It's a truss system, and that shows you, it gives you a small storage area. Mostly what I want this barn for is down below. You know, it's all cedar impressions like my
Mhm.
home is.
So it matches the existing.
Yes. Runs right in.
Have you spoken to your neighbors?
Few of them came, they're over there, they might want to say something, I'm not sure, but everybody is okay so far. I think it'll be a nice addition to the whole, what's going on in the neighborhood.
And the access to the garage, is it from the front, is it from the rear?
Well, that's debatable, whichever we call the front yard, it's actually
Is it from the street or from?
not from the street.
Not from the street.
Not
Okay.
from the street.
So you wouldn't see any garage doors or anything from the street, it would be facing the properties?
Yes, correct.
Any questions? You guys have anything?
No, I'm
No?
all
You're all set? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard? Yes, please state your name for the record, sir.
Ken Polito, Castle Circle, who is right next door to the classroom and the fully be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Seabrook Lake is 11 Coachman Ridge, and I'm the owner of the property. Who's asking for the record letter for this parcel again? We're in favor of it. Picking up on what Jeff said, I think conditions, you couldn't put it in the backyard because that's the lake. Topography, it does drastically slope towards the lake when you get to the point where the structures are. And I think that one of the standards for the variance is only on account of the existing structures. You couldn't put anything behind those existing structures because of the wetlands and the setbacks. Just by virtue of a bylaw, this probably is unique to just about any other parcel on Southwood Sigmund Avenue. Because I don't think anybody who drove down the lake, as it currently stands, could put, because of the long, it's not so narrow, but the long nature of the lot, he's the only one who could place a conforming structure like this in his alleged front yard. So we're in favor of it. We've seen the elevations. We think it's a great improvement to the area.
Thank you. Anybody, you okay with the hardship he presented? Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard on this? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Of our decision. Our next hearing is to hear the appeal of Reverend Dr. Susan DeHoff, 33 Venus Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., for the renewal of a special permit granted May 9th, 2006, for a period of 10 years to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, to allow the property located at 33 Venus Drive for private tutoring and pastoral counseling in the Residence A District. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 10, Plot 31-60. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Susan DeHoff.
Okay, and I can assume that there's been no substantial change in what you're doing from what you originally presented?
No change.
Same hours, same everything else?
Yes, same hours, everything else.
Okay.
So we don't have to put any time frame on this anymore?
No, we can sunset it.
Okay, I'm all set.
Okay. Anyone?
Have we received any complaints from police or fire?
According to Patty. no.
I've not heard of any complaints, no.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd just like to acknowledge that here early as opposed to late.
That's good. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Okay. There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Our next hearing is to hear the appeal of BW Shrewsbury Operations, LLC, 13405 West Star Drive, Suite 2, Shelby Township, Michigan, for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, to allow food service not confined to within the building upon the property, the proposed exterior deck of Buffalo Wild Wings Restaurant in the commercial business district upon property located at 476 Boston Turnpike. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 33, Plot 84. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Sure. Scott Neary from Worcester, Massachusetts. Essentially what you just said, we appeared before the selectmen the other day, and it's essentially additional. The thing that I want to make clear is it's not additional seating, it's alternative seating. It comes to the side, so our capacity is not changing. The number of people, the number of cars, none of that is coming in. No parking spaces are being altered. It's just giving some people a chance to enjoy the unbelievable view during the summer.
So if there's no additional seating, how does that factor?
It's just same as we do now. We have the capacity of, when we get close to it, we have somebody up front. Unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we don't get to it as much as we did when we first opened. But right. Patriots games or Saturday nights, things of that nature, we have to keep the people out of the building. We have to do that now. Okay. So that will be the same. I don't expect it to happen too much. It's, again, in the summer, because the summer months when this is going to be utilized, we really don't reach that. Okay. That number. So I don't expect it more than once, maybe twice. July 4th, the fireworks night might happen. Right. Something like that. But really, other than that, it's the same as if the Patriots are playing in the Super Bowl Sunday. We have to monitor how many people are in the building anyway.
Okay. Are those tables going to be weighted on?
Oh yes, yeah. We'll have the seats outside. There'll be constant people. We schedule people for out there. It won't be self-serve or anything. It's the same thing. Same as if they were inside. Dedicated services to the sections.
Is there access from the parking lot to that area?
Emergency only. Okay. Emergency only. We will not let people go down and smoke down that way. Everything's still to the front door. Okay. That's just emergency only. That brings you out to the grass right next to the parking lot.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, My biggest concern is the parking.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have enough parking now, and this is going to be, in spite of what you say,
Right.
this is going to be additional people. How are you going to maintain, how are you going to regulate the parking?
Well, I would say a couple of things. We had some parking issues when we first opened, mainly because when we first opened a store, I'm going through it now in a different city in Burlington, our staff has tripled. We have 24, 25 servers. We have 15 people. It's literally tripled from what it is currently. We have 25 to 30 less cars in the lot than when we opened now because just of staff. I don't think this could be wrong. I'm usually aware of all this when there is an issue, but I haven't seen any parking in the street, anybody complaining. We don't have parking issues anymore, really. The only problem we kind of tend to have is people think they can go around the building and they have to turn around. But other than that, there's plenty of spots there now. We haven't had an issue in a long time. And we just simply can't put additional people in certain times. In the summertime, we don't reach capacity anyway, so I think it's a perfect mix. There's no heaters out here. Our other 3 patios in the state have heaters, and we can go early spring and late fall. There's nothing like that here, so it's going to be a lot shorter season out there.
How high is the fence going to be?
It is matching. It's on there. Let me see. The fence up on. It's going to be level with the floor of the building, of the where it sits now. So it is. I think it's. 1 second, sir. So I just handed it there. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be either. 1 second. It is.
It's 10 feet to the top of the windows.
Right. You're talking about the floor, though, sir, right? Coming because the door from the building.
Top of the fence.
So what is it, a 3-foot fence?
I'm sorry, surrounding.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it's 4, but it's up there. Can I step up for a second? I'm sorry. Yes, on the other one.
This one?
Thank you. Sorry. It is. It's not on there. I don't know. We'll have to get you that answer, sir. I don't know. But this part here is, you're talking about the fence that keeps people up on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at 2 o'clock, I don't want to see
It's got to be at least, it's higher than 3 feet.
Okay.
I know it's higher than 3 feet because it's the same as our other patios. I just don't have the exact number. It's,
Okay.
I want to say 4, but I don't know the exact
I was
answer.
going to say that's something that the building inspector would probably look at when.
That's got to be.
Right, it's got to be inspected to the right level. But yeah, it's bigger than 3. I know that for certain.
With this seasonal seating, do you still have enough bathrooms?
Yes, sir, because again, the capacity is not changing. We can't, if we put more than 200 in, I think it's 282, 282 in there, which includes our staff. Fire department can shut us down if we have to. We found that out the first weekend. It was a little different for us. I've been doing this a long time, and I've never had the staff be counted as part of the capacity, except for here. And we found that out from Patty the first week, and we've made that change. And since then, we ever get close, we have somebody, a manager usually, or a trainer up front with a clicker, and we keep people outside. They're not too happy about it, but we keep them outside before the 1 in, 1 out type thing, before they come in. So it's a good problem to have, but that won't change. If we were to add additional seating, if we were asking for 56 more and the capacity to go up, then yes, we'd have to change a lot of things. But we're not going to do that.
How are you not getting more seating?
Well, there's more seating there. We can't allow people. It's the same as it is now. I can fit 320 people in there if I want to, but I can get shut down if I do that. And we're not going to take that chance. We have it now. The fire department's come 3 times this year during Patriots games to count the number of people. We've been fine. We have somebody at the front with a clicker letting us know how many people are in there. We show them. They count. Thank you, and they leave. We have to do that. We have to do that in all of our stores when they get real busy. And that won't change.
What's your busiest season?
Football season.
Football.
Yeah, December, January, we're at 2 busiest. March helps, the March Madness, but December, January, we're at 2 busiest months. And March is probably 3rd.
Does this affect the license that was granted by the selectmen to the seating?
No, because it's still the same capacity.
Same capacity.
Yeah, is there another license needed for outside?
We went,
They're already in front of the
we
Board
went in
of
front of the
Selectmen.
board and that was approved.
ZBA?
Yeah. This is,
Okay.
no, this is the second, that was on Tuesday.
Oh, selectmen.
Selectmen, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, the key is the fact that we have to do our job, making sure that more people don't come in there, but we have to do that now. So, and I think the real idea of this thing is that it's in the summertime, when if you come into our spot in the summer, we really don't get to capacity.
You got a beautiful view. You're the first people ever using it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we continue to do it. It's been great, it's been great to us so far, so. Love being
You
here.
all set?
Yeah.
Mel, you're okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the chairman something, though. Usually if you give us these, they're asked.
That's fine, absolutely.
I've been warning people.
Huh?
I've been warning people.
That's fine. I couldn't read these little, I just want to make sure you can see.
Anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, ma'am, please state your name for the record.
Purvi Patel, 6 Hawkridge Road. He's saying that there's not going to be additional seating, but that means there's going to be additional seating, and there's going to be more people there.
They count out the door and they limit the amount of people coming in.
And where's this deck going to be? What side of the
The Route 9 side.
to the Route 9?
It's 39 feet long. Where if you drive on Route 9, you see the tile shop, and it says Buffalo Wild Wings, essentially under that, in the back of the Route 9, which I believe is the north side.
Currently, there is parking issues. If the summertime rolls in, and there's lots of parking on the street, Lake Street, and people crossing from across the other parking lot onto the Lake Street. Because I drive down there up and down, and I've seen that, which is a big hazard for pedestrians. So it does get very hectic in summer times too. It's not just.
Yep.
Have you advised the police when you were concerned?
I'm sorry,
Have you advised the police when you're concerned?
I have not. Should I be doing that when I see something like that?
Yes, you should.
50 seats?
Yeah. How many seats are out there?
I'm sorry?
How many seats?
56 seats.
Okay.
56 seats. And again, I would stress, I fully admit, when we first opened, it was an opening lane. I mean, that location has the record for 1,100 Buffalo Wild Wings for opening day. It was an insane 5 or 6, 7 months. And there was definitely parking issues at the beginning. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I just haven't seen, if they're impossible here and there, maybe, but lately it just, trust me, it's a problem I'd love to have.
Okay.
Is there going to be a time limit on when they could use that outside?
The license we went for is the same hours. There's no way I want anybody out there that late. We usually, in our other patios at our other stores, we shut down an hour before. Just to give, we stop serving, I take that back. We
And your
stop
hours
serving.
out?
2 o'clock in the morning every day but Sunday, which is 1. So we stop serving a half hour before now. So our last call is at 1:30 on 6 days a week and 12:30 on Sundays. We'll stop serving an hour before that outside. They'll let people finish up. We're not going to rush anybody out, but we won't, because we have to close that down before we close.
So you won't
inside.
see anyone after 11:30, you're saying?
Correct.
After 1:30.
Well, no, we won't serve anybody after
Okay.
Right.
after 11:30.
Okay.
They'll be out there, but we won't
Right.
serve anybody. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So correct. We won't see anybody new out there after 11:30. Right.
Okay.
So how late is the deck open till, you said? Or how late the person or people could be there, you said?
Well, the license reads at the same time, but we don't want them out there at the same time because it's hard enough to get people out on busy weekends. So we'll stop seating people an hour before we stop seating people inside the restaurant. So it's an extra hour buffer zone. So it'll be 12. Get this right. 11:30. We'll stop seating 11:30 on Monday. Monday through Saturday, and 10:30. 10:30 on Sundays.
Yes.
Because the noise is there even at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you can hear it, so I was just wondering that.
They'll be on the other side.
Correct.
Luckily,
I
they'll be on the
agree,
other side,
but
though, yeah.
If there's people still there.
Sure.
it's gonna be-
And there will be no entertainment, none of that. We don't have an entertainment license or anything like that, so
Right.
there's no music or stuff like that. So
What's your demographic?
it's mostly families, to be honest with you. It's 18 to 45 males is the number one, but number 2 is without question families. Our Saturday days are almost just as busy as our Saturday nights, which is great. With the sports fields down the road, it helps a lot.
Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard on this? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Our next hearing is to hear the appeal of Sujatha Kanan, 1 Hawk Ridge Road, Shrewsbury, Mass., for the renewal of a special permit granted February 25th, 2013, to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, to operate a home spa in the Residence B1 district. The property is located at 1 Hawk Ridge Road. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 33, Plot 90-7. Welcome. Same as everything else you're requesting is the same. Any complaints as far as you know?
I have not heard of any complaints. I think I had one question based on the previous decision that the board had rendered, and it talks about hours of operation shall be 8 hours Monday through Saturday, but what are your general hours of operation?
No, I reduced my hours because I have 2 kids now, so 5 and 2. I cut down my hours a lot, so I don't think I can increase my hours again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing near future actually. I need 7 more years for that.
No, there's not.
okay.
They're less now than what they were?
Yeah.
Okay.
I work hardly 3 hours or 4 hours.
Okay. You okay?
Yeah, fine.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? 2013, so it was 3 years, I believe, that we did this. Okay. There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Our next hearing is to hear the appeal of Padmini Nagarajan, 14 Shannon Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 1, to operate an in-home retail floral business in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 14 Shannon Drive. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 188013-2. Please state your name for the record.
So,
Please state your name for the record.
Padmini Nagarajan.
Okay. And tell us what you're going to be doing.
So I'm going to be selling agent for a florist supplier from New York. So I'm going to be placing weekly orders based on the customer requirements, and he would be shipping to me overnight. And basically this comes only weekly once. So that's shipping will be mainly done on Thursdays through UPS, overnight delivery. And the UPS delivery time is between 9 to 10:30 a.m. And the customers would come pick up the order on Friday evenings or Saturday mornings.
Okay.
Have you spoken to any of your abutters in regards to this business that you want to operate?
My neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've done. Yeah, reached out to 4 or 5 neighbors.
And their response was?
They were okay with that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Unless you've heard anything.
What about storage?
They'll none storage because I'm going to place order only based on the customer requirement. So if they fail to pick up, I'm going to donate it to the nearby temples. I cannot use it.
So in other words, if I order it to come in on Friday and I don't show up Saturday or Sunday, you will give it to one of a number of religious organizations?
Yes.
Okay. Can we put that in the decision?
So as well we can. Yeah.
Okay. Is it a residential neighborhood?
Right.
It's a residential.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot of storage.
Yeah, there's no
It's also
storage.
a little bit different than most home occupations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you any employees? Or just
No.
You? Just you?
Just me and online orders.
And what's it? So it's all online?
Yeah.
So no one's coming to look at anything?
No.
You're ordering online?
Yeah, it's all
What
online.
have you got, a catalog? And they look at the catalog?
No, I've not started anything yet. I'm just
No. When you start.
catalog, yes, online catalog.
What type of anticipated volume?
I really don't have a customer base. It's just my interest. I just want to try my passion out there.
Okay.
It's just a trial.
So you don't know if anyone else is doing anything
No,
similar?
no.
Okay.
I know people doing in other states. My friends do pick up orders from somebody else, but they said they do pick up quite often, and the other person who's in other states are doing pretty well. So I'm hoping I'll do better.
So the orders go in Thursday, they get delivered?
On Friday or Saturday mornings.
Okay.
Friday evenings or Saturday mornings. They're usually for the religious purposes, because they're tropical flowers,
right,
which are rarely available in the country. So the retailer brings them back from tropical countries.
So it's more strictly in that area, so it's not like on Valentine's Day you're going to be getting...
No.
So this is a brand new business?
I guess so.
Well, you haven't done it before and you don't know.
No, I'm just passionate about flowers.
Okay.
The tropical flowers.
Okay.
You okay? Anyone? Yeah, good.
So you're expecting one delivery a week?
May not be. It would be more than one, definitely more than one, if I can build up the customer base. But I
No, I
cannot-
mean the UPS truck coming.
Oh, one delivery a
One
week.
delivery. So, and how many customers, how many vehicle trips to pick up are you anticipating?
Since I don't have a customer base as of
I understand.
I would maximize for the next 1 year until I build up, maybe ranging between 5 to 10 cars
Per
week?
Per week.
Do you need to have the 9:30 p.m. pickup time that late, or could you
No,
reduce it a little
because
bit?
it's a working day.
Mhm.
Friday is a working day, so I give them a chunk of window.
I'm just thinking about people coming to the house at that time in the evening, and
It might not be. It's the maximum window I can keep it open until.
Okay. Anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this?
Right.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Gordon.
Since this is a brand new business,
Yeah.
would you object to a short sunset, like 2 years? In other words, you have to come back to us in 2 years.
Sure.
And if it's working, it goes on. If it's not, you go elsewhere.
I guess.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
that works for me.
All right.
And just one quick question. So you schedule one pickup at a time? So in other words,
No, one delivery.
I think one
one delivery at a time?
One
right?
delivery at a
Okay,
time.
gotcha.
Because it's not to one person I'm going to be giving it to. I might get orders from different families, and they might not come all together. I don't know if I answered your question right.
No, I'm just hoping there's not a cluster of vehicles.
Oh, no,
coming.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All set? You're all set?
I just want to add that I did receive a phone call from an abutter expressing their opposition, just worrying about the timing of the pickup.
Pickup.
Yep, I'm just worried about potential traffic in the neighborhood.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I don't have a customer base right now, and I'm not hoping it would drastically jump from, say, if I am my own customer, or I have my neighbor who's a South Asian who might come for a pickup. But then it might not jump to 100 people, 100 customer base who would all turn in at the same time, or even 20 people all come in between 6 to 9.
I think with the sunset, that would cover if there's any problems.
There's
down
any
the road.
problems?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
A short one, and
Yeah.
we can see what happens, and if the neighbor is right,
Right.
we can accommodate the neighbor.
And I'm concerned about the 9:30 time.
Mhm.
It's kind of late. Is there? I'd like to
I can
reduce that.
restrict it. I mean,
Yeah.
based on your
What's-
resolution.
What do you think is reasonable?
8 o'clock I think is reasonable
8
because
o'clock?
of Friday evening.
Okay,
8 o'clock would be reasonable.
so everything stops at 8 o'clock? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a 2-year sunset.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, if there's no complaints next time around, we'll probably be a little longer.
Fair enough.
Okay, any last chance, anyone wish to be heard? Yes, state your name for the record.
Derek Rillo, 16 Shannon Drive. I'm on a butter. I do have some concerns regarding this. Are there going to be any signs posted, like
No.
an open sign
There's
or
no,
a business sign at all?
None.
I do have a concern with the hours of pickup between 6 and 9:30.
Which
no, we just reduced it to 6 to 8.
I do have a concern between the pickup hours between 6 and 8. That is a duplex house, and it's a very small frontage for their side. I'm next to them, so I can see a lot of people parking in front of my house to go pick up flowers on Friday nights and Saturday mornings. Not really what I want to see in a residential neighborhood, especially if she's trying to run a business. I'm a small business owner. I get it. I'm not trying to crush her dreams here, but I do have a concern about operating what it states here as a retail floral business. And the word retail, to me, that should be in some type of commercial zoning, where they should possibly rent some space somewhere that allows that to happen, as opposed to having it happen in a nice residential, quiet neighborhood. I have a big concern regarding just traffic flow in the street and having people pull up at 8 o'clock at night coming to pick up flowers, or she didn't really give any hours for Saturday morning, like what time do we pick up Saturday morning?
Can you address that, Paul?
Arrange.
Saturday morning, it would be mostly between 11 and 1, 11 a.m. and 1 p.m.
It's a home occupation. It's a home occupation.
And you're going to be the only employee?
Yeah.
That might clarify.
It is a home occupation allowable by special permit in that zone. Just so.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the street has little children there. I just think the increase in traffic would not be good for the neighborhood, especially for the property values in the neighborhood, and where now you have a florist operating next to your house, and you're giving it a 2-year sunset. I mean, if it, say it takes off, I have to wait 2 years to turn around and say, she should probably be moving into a commercial property. Can we look at possibly making that a shorter period of time, since it is a new business? You know, possibly a year, 6 months, let's review it. I think 2 years is a very long time. If somebody was opening up a business next to your house, giving it 2 years to see how it goes is, you know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
It's a long time.
Yep.
I'd ask you to reconsider that term and possibly reconsider the whole thing. I mean, I'm just not a big fan.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is the continued hearing.
We're going to vote on that, so I can sit.
Oh, yeah. It's,
Do we want to do the decisions first?
Yeah.
Or?
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's vote on these so Paul can skedaddle. First issue.
73 South Street?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Questions, comments?
I just think,
Anyone? What's that?
I'm not in favor of it.
Not really either. Any?
No, there's so many questions revolving around it.
Well, I don't have to vote then.
It appears to be a self-created hardship.
Yep. Okay.
To me.
Can I get a motion for all 3 variances?
I move to deny all 3.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next is 81 Worthington.
It's
No.
224 South Quinsigamon. 81
Oh,
Worthington
I'm
is
sorry,
the address.
228, 228 South Quincy. construct the barn in the front yard.
Seems fine.
Seems okay.
Seems fine to me.
Yeah.
There's
Nice.
always
Use it
been
for
the
storage.
argument that the front yard is the backyard
On the lake, sure.
It's a nice looking piece of architecture they put up there. So.
Yeah, it's not going to detract.
No, it'll be nice
In
looking.
fact, that's becoming the diamond row now.
The diamond room.
And
As
it's
long as
conforming
not
in
used
all
for
of
living
them.
space.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, you want to put that as a condition, not to be used for living space?
Sure.
Yep, there you go. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve with the condition that it not be lived as living space.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? 33 Venus Drive, home occupation, tutoring, and pastoral counseling.
She was pretty responsible to come in before.
Before the expiration.
Yeah, right. I just say we sunset it with her.
Ownership of property.
Her ownership, yeah. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve
Can I get a
with.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 476 Boston Turnpike, Shrewsbury, Mass. Special permit to allow food service not confined to a building.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
As long as it's fenced, like he
They
said.
still have to meet the condition of occupancy.
Yeah, I think that there has been a question about, well, a number of people have mentioned it, about increased seating. And they're increasing the number of seats, but not the capacity of the building,
Right.
not the capacity of the site.
And it sounds like they've been tested.
It does.
Yeah, can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
We don't have to put time for that, do we? No.
We could. We could. Anyone want to do that?
Time
What's that?
period
Put
to
a time period on
supervise
it?
it, to see if it gets out of hand, or
I don't know what kind of recourse we would have if it did, the zoning board at least.
Well, that's what-
If I were
It's a
the,
special permit, that's why we put sunset it. You know, they would have to come back.
we could sunset it with their ownership, but if I was the owner,
No.
I wouldn't want to invest the money in building
Well, that's
that
the
and then
question,
have
is
it
what they wanna-
sunset.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't think.
there you go.
Yep, okay. Motion?
Just one?
I made a motion.
Oh, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
You just leave that, you don't-
No, no.
One Hawk Ridge Road,
Covered.
special permit to operate an in-home spa, a renewal.
Want to go with the ownership, or do you want us to keep sunset?
There was no complaints, correct? Did
No.
you know?
No, no.
No issues.
I would do the same thing, that it's sunset.
With the ownership.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And last but not least, 14 Shannon Drive, an in-home retail floral business, residence B2 district.
As long as you restrict the time on pickup to 8, and we sunset it.
6 to 8, I'm not thrilled with this one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that the volume, there's no limit on volume here.
Right, there's no way to.
And when I first looked at this appeal, I said, why this belongs in a commercial zone?
But it's allowed in a residential zone.
With special
With a
permit.
special permit.
Well,
And she's the only, she's gonna be the only employee.
but.
How much can she do?
Right.
Well, I don't know. But at what point does it become too much on the neighborhood? Is it 20 pickups? Is it 50 pickups?
No, at the time that the neighbors complain to us, that's when it becomes too much.
Well, I think there should be some limit
there's no
not
way-
only on the time, but on the number of pickups that can occur. I mean, this is a
It's gonna
genuine.
take her a year anyway to establish a small business.
Well, Dale, what would you suggest in order to have her start this business to keep it under control?
Well, I think something.
Short of moving it somewhere else.
Right.
I think something like a limit of 15 to 20 pickups a week. That's a significant amount of traffic. She estimated 10, so I think
But
capping it at.
how can you supervise how many pickups there are.
You can't.
Well,
can't.
well,
There's no
we
way to
It's an
can't.
enforcement problem and almost impossible to enforce.
It's all unenforceable. The times are,
Yeah.
Well, I understand, but I understand the neighbor's concern as well.
I do too.
So,
I'm just wondering what difference it is if she's running a floral business compared to an attorney running a law office out of his home. They're going to have the
Because
same.
by appointment, it's one person at a time.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
It
the
is a little bit
difference.
different. You don't know who's coming, whereas the lawyer does know who's coming. He knows when they're coming. People don't just show up.
And a lot of times you can do that kind of work without people coming to you.
Right.
Yeah, it
And this one-
requires a.
This one's going to start with a couple of her friends coming.
It's not going to be high volume.
It's not going to be high volume. Maybe 5 years out it will be.
Okay.
What do we
Well,
do?
I'm not saying no. I'm saying I think there should be some clearer limits to it.
What are clearer limits?
Well,
To me,
Enforceable.
I'm voting no. So,
What about like a 1-year sunset instead of 2, or, you know, so we can
yeah, I think
let it start?
I'd be okay with a 1 year sunset to see what happens in the 1 year.
someone make a motion.
Make a motion to approve with a 1 year sunset.
Do we want any sort of condition on
hours.
With the hours of
She represented 6 to 8 o'clock.
6 to 8 o'clock.
on
Friday.
Fridays.
For
and
pickup.
11 to 1
Yeah.
on Saturday.
And only deliveries between the time specified in her letter, which was
9 and 10:30.
Is that maybe a
Well,
little?
that's tough to control because that's UPS.
I know.
She can't say
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
come.
She's predicting that
And
UPS will come
starting
at
a
that
new
hour.
business, to just give her the 1 year,
Okay.
you're saying you're going to fail. I think
No, I'm
2
saying
years
she's
is the
going to
minimum.
succeed
I don't know
and
that she's making
outgrow it.
There's not a large capital investment here.
No.
Yeah.
If it's a website, and then she can change
It's
the
a
address.
website and a
Yeah.
refrigerator.
Yeah.
Worst thing happens, she comes back in front of us and we approve it
Yeah, for another thing.
for another however long
Right.
if there's no issues.
Okay, so motion.
Make a
been made.
motion.
Is someone second it?
Anyone second?
What is the motion?
Motion to approve with the conditions.
1 year time limit, Fridays, pick up 6 to 8, Saturday, 11 to 1.
That's fine with me, yeah.
Okay, so
And I
it's-
would recommend, if you are to approve a condition of no parking on
On the-
Shannon.
On
or-
Shannon
or-
Drive.
It's a public street, I don't know if you can enforce that. It's an enforcement issue.
Okay.
Yeah, skip it. Okay,
I would still like to vote for 2 years. So
well, you guys need to work that out.
I'm a 2-year person.
Well, because of the person who spoke in opposition, I'd like to give it a 1 year and see what
Normally,
happens.
I would go
I'm in
longer
agreement.
if there was a capital investment, but there's not. It's not.
Well, that's why there are 5 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want her to not succeed. But I think
But
that,
6 months before she even gets anyone but a cousin. So you're giving her a 6-month license.
We get a motion out there
Yeah,
with the
there's a
conditions.
mo- there's a motion with conditions.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
I'm opposed as well. Okay. So that motion passes because it's a special permit, 3 to 2.
You actually need 4.
On the special permit, I thought it was only majority, and I am stand corrected. That is denied then. 173 South Street was all 3 variances unanimously denied.
That's this one.
224, 228 South Quincy was approved unanimously. 33 Venus Drive, unanimously approved. 476 Boston Turnpike, unanimously approved. And 1 Hawkbridge Road, unanimously approved. I'm waiting for one more.
I'm rethinking my vote.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Okay.
Because I wasn't accomplishing what I wanted by denying it.
Okay. Then, special permit 14 Shannon Drive was approved.
With conditions.
With conditions. Okay. We now move on to continued hearing, 440-526 Hartford Turnpike, Smart Growth Design, LLC.
That was interesting.
Okay. It is on a special. I think it's so long. There is no seats on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chairman, I'm going to need a minute or so.
Sure, go right ahead.
I think images will be coming right at you as well, so
Okay.
I'll try to elevate them as much as I can. Extension cords, you folks have any? I saw some on the tray up here.
Oh, yeah. Should we allow to take a bio break? Are we allowed a bio break here? People listen.
I'm making a voyage with technology. Train wreck. That's where the train goes, it just comes through here. Cardi, I might need your assistance.
I was gonna, I told him, no, I go, we need more room. No, I mean, oh, you mean this way? Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I think
We
we're
can
more
see,
into
we
this.
can see people, we can, the table's much closer.
Yeah.
Loosely binder in front of us. That's what I think we're gonna do, if we have one. Is right in the front, grab one of those. Set up the chamber to grab one. We might be good.
It's, there's too many issues with it, and I think they're gonna have some issues with the building department.
Yeah. Give these to Lisa.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're all set?
Oh,
no.
my head's in the way.
There's something on my table.
You put a book under it.
One of these things.
Oh, yeah. We want to schedule another meeting before our next meeting on March 21st.
I'm not sure how this is gonna work. Do we all
7
like go
o'clock?
on the other side of the table?
Is that good for you guys?
Oh, we'll have to sit here like this,
Yeah.
unless you want to.
No, no.
Yeah. Yep.
Just so that we can.
Yeah, we're starting to get concerned on time limits.
Okay.
There was not my eyes.
And my head is in the way.
All right, just so I'm sure.
Yes.
What are we covering tonight?
Tonight, we were supposed to cover water and sewer, but we're limiting it more to water because we do not have our peer review back from the sewer issue, if I believe. Is that correct? And I think we're to address, we have our traffic consultant here, our water
Yes.
consultant, and Paul. And Paul.
And we were also, if there was any, we also have Jeff Walsh here on our site.
That's true. Okay, yep. Okay.
Any follow up on his comment letter.
Right.
So now that I'm totally confused.
Go ahead.
We're going to do,
We're
going to continue traffic.
It's a smorgasbord. We're
We're
going to
going to do
do a lot
water,
tonight.
and that's tonight.
Yes. So,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, it's our understanding that we had some issues with the site plan discussions. We had some work to clean up with that. We also had issues with the traffic, which we were continuing that as well. So a continuation on finishing the site plan, continuation on the traffic is really what our agenda is for this evening. The water, we had testing done and the reports are not done yet on the water analysis.
Okay.
And the sewer, that's being revised now, and once the peer review consultant's on board, we'll be able to present that. So I think at the next hearing, we'll be able to do the water and the sewer infrastructure. Tonight's our objective to wrap up as much as we could on the site plan and on the traffic, which were really the two biggest issues so far in our discussions.
I believe there was a letter from Mass Highway. Did it address? It was an email? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
Okay.
all right, thank you. By way of introduction, my name is Fran Zaretti. I'm the proponent from Smarthborough Design, LLC. With me this evening is Wayne Bellick, Waterman Design Associates, site plan consultants, Courtney Jones from Tetra Tech, traffic consultants, Doug Carr from Cube 3 Architects, the architectural consultant, and Bob Engler of SEB LLC, the 40B consultant. This evening, we're going to start with the discussion on the site plan design changes that have occurred through different iterations based on discussions with the board and the neighbors in the last couple of months. Similarly, we're going to discuss the traffic design changes that were made as a result of these and questions from the board. So it's a different venue tonight, but we're going to show you what we did in the last 30 days, which I think will be very beneficial for the town to see this. So I'd like to, at this point, begin the discussion with the site plan design presentation by Wayne, followed by the traffic with Courtney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Fran. For the record, Wayne Bellick, Waterman Design. As Fran said, we've left the last meeting looking at a couple changes. Oh boy, here we go. All right, so basically that was just the introduction that Fran had provided you folks.
Wayne, can we dim the lights a little?
Sure.
How do we do that?
I'm not sure how this room works.
There's a pad.
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Sorry, Matthew. If we can't, we can't.
Don't pull the fire alarm, please.
No, Mel, we can't.
All right, Mel.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I was thinking that we would do is go over the peer review comments, but that can come at a later point in the meeting. But I wanted to hit on a few things. The use waiver acknowledgement. Basically, throughout this whole process, we've discussed waivers, the dimensional waivers, and I just want to make it clear that we are seeking a waiver for use as well. The multifamily is not allowed in the limited industrial district nor the Route 20 overlay district. And if we were to do something like that without going through the 40B process, it would either require a zoning change or a variance. With the 40B, use is typically one of those waivers that is requested. ZBA comments and the follow-up. At the last meeting, I'm not sure what precipitated it, but I know that Dale had raised a question about accessibility to the fourth story over at Phase 2. to which Peter Bartash from Cube 3 had responded, and I thought did a pretty nice job. It was soon thereafter that I recall Mel and Fran having an exchange about the fourth story. And then Fran having made a comment, which basically, quite honestly, just shocked me. I never saw it coming. Had said, okay, Mel, I'll lop off the fourth story. You want the fourth story gone? We're going to lop off the fourth story. Soon after that, as we were sitting there, Lisa, you were probably the closest to me at the bench, and I'm not sure if it was audible enough, but I did hear you say that you wanted to see a reduction in the density over at Phase 1. So with that, again, let me see if I can... It's going double on these things. Oh, this isn't good. Okay, so basically what you see here is Phase 1, the requested dimensional waivers, and if the board recalls, we're looking at two waivers. The first waiver out at Route 20, I'm going to up in this area here, and the second one down in this area and here. The Route 20 waiver was for, it was a dimensional one again, setback from the edge of the parking area to the new sideline of layout, and the waiver number 2, again, a dimensional setback, was from the garage to the wetland to the rear of the property. That dimension in the town's bylaw, if you recall the wetland bylaw, they have a requirement of 30 feet. We were showing 21 feet. And in the waiver number 1, the requirement's 15 feet, and we were proposing 9 feet. So with that, it caused us to take a look at the site. What we had done is we looked at an option which addresses Lisa's concern, which was the reduced density. We had, as you can see on the site, we had eliminated this building in this area, which was a 36-unit building. The net difference is 24 units. Basically, we had 180 units on the site. We are now down to 156 units. We've eliminated again, this building in here, and with the exception of 12 units, 24 units have gone away. We've taken the balance of the 12 units, broken it out into buildings 1 through 4. So we've gone from 5 buildings down to 4. And one of the benefits to this is if you look at where the former building 1 was in this area, it will allow for, just hearing the concerns of the abutters, 140 to 150 feet of green space. What that also does is it increases the amount of open space on the property by 3/4 of an acre, which would be retained as mature vegetation. In addition to that, we heard comments from the town and the concerns. While we still don't feel that we needed any relief to the parking requirements. We believe that at the 1.5 to 1, we did have enough for the residents and their visitors. However, we did hear from the town that you felt that it wasn't adequate enough. So with that, what I wanted to do was make reference to the Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE 2010 4th edition, for parking ratios for land use apartment buildings. It comes out to 1.3 vehicles per unit. Parking ratio is 1.5 that we provided prior to looking at this modification. The ratios that the ITE established at 1.23 are based on parking surveys conducted at numerous locations throughout the U.S. for Land Use Code 221, which are low to mid-rise apartments. Parking demand ratios are reported in both urban and suburban settings. And the average parking ratio for 21 suburban apartment complexes with an average of 311 units was measured again at 1.23. So with this, again, having heard the comments from the town that 1.5 was for the residents of the community and we needed to set aside additional parking, we took the number of parking spaces and we increased it 10%. And what that results in is now we have 234 parking spaces for the residents of the community. We've added 24 spaces for a total of 258 spaces. 24 of those spaces are located in the garages. With the garage, one of the garages over in this location here, as I said earlier, that particular location was the previous location of our garage that required a waiver from the wetland setback requirements. That waiver, again, required that we'd be at 30 feet. We exceed that, we're at 31 feet. We've done that, we've accomplished that by taking the garage previously in this location and moving it to here. Likewise, the other waiver that we're looking at was up in this area here. We're looking at relief from 15 feet to 9 feet. And by a shifting of the site, essentially what we had done is taken buildings 1 and 2 in the clubhouse and shifted them eastward or toward the bottom of the page and created an additional 6-foot buffer to make that comply. So in this particular phase, other than the use waiver, there are no waivers required. Getting doubles on these. So phase 2. I'm great with these remotes.
Wayne, what you ought to bring in is one of your children. Have them do
Yeah,
that.
that's what I need. Oh, great. That's beautiful. All right. Well, I'm not going to mess with it. This is phase 2. Phase 1, if you can recall, required 2 waivers as well. Those waivers, and I'm not going to go back to that screen because of my inability to run this thing. If you recall, as a result, as I said, and I think it came from some dialogue from both Dale and Mel and the exchange with Fran. At the last meeting, this particular portion of the building was 4 stories. We have done away with that, so it's now 3 stories. So with that, we eliminated that second waiver. The other waiver, we had a waiver here and here for dimensional horizontal setbacks. We've eliminated those by shifting this building and the 2 other buildings slightly forward to meet those dimensional requirements. Again, like the other site, so in essence, basically what we have on phase 2 as well, there are no dimensional waivers required, only the use waiver. Additional visitor parking we've introduced to this site. There was a comment. We figured we'd address a couple things at this point. The Graves Engineering peer review letter had mentioned that in this particular area here, they felt we needed to provide a little bit more of a leveling area. So to accomplish that, what that's going to require, we haven't graded it out, but we've taken a quick look at what it would entail, and basically what it would entail is losing some of these parking spaces. What we proposed was taking these parking spaces and redistributing them in this area here, and we extended this parking area southward about another 2 bays. So again, like the other site, phase 1, phase 2 exceeds the ratio of 1.5 to 1 and provides for an additional 10%. So now if you look at the local requirement of 1.5 to 1 plus the 10%, and we weigh that to the ITE requirement of 1.23 spaces per unit, it actually comes out to closer to 20% spacing available for visitors. Let's see. So basically, this with the reduction in units as a result of lopping off the 4th floor at the last hearing, we have gone from 100 units down to 92. This thing's killing me. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Doug Carr in a second, but I've done a number of 40Bs in my career. I'm doing another one right now that's over about 350 units. And what I have found is that typically when 40Bs are proposed, the proponent does request waivers from the local regulations and bylaws. Typically, the biggest one would be the use. With this, I've never done a project that was a waiver-free 40B. And I think this is a good thing. I think this is a good move, certainly on Fran's part. I think it says a lot about him as the developer. And I think the whole thing, while Fran would probably like to take credit for the reduction in the units, I think it came from your board, Mr. Chairman. I think, just hearing the feedback from the board members, that I referenced earlier in particular, I think it certainly has brought us to where we are today. With that, I'd like to introduce Doug Carr. However you want to address this, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to go section by section and address concerns.
Keep going, yeah.
Doug? This is your
Good evening. My name is Doug Carr. I'm a principal with Cube 3 Studio Architects. We're, as you've heard us before, multifamily experts, and we've been working with these two gentlemen for a long time. As was mentioned before, the Phase 1... Go ahead. As was mentioned before, we've managed to eliminate an entire building on the Phase 1 property, to go from 5 buildings to 4 buildings, and reduce those units by 24, which has greatly freed up the site, as was described earlier, and a total loss of 24 units compared to what you saw previously. So just by adding, that's it right there, sorry. Thank you. So the loss of this building, obviously, we had, at one time, we had 36 units in each of these 5 buildings. This one has been reduced, and 12 units of this were distributed, 3 in each building, which is really just 1 unit per building. So it's a very minimal massing change in terms of the buildings themselves. Those buildings will feel roughly the same as they did before, but you really have 20% less buildings by having this one gone completely, and obviously a lot more green space. So we think that's obviously a very positive move. More green space, more pedestrian friendly. And we think it's a great improvement to the architecture of the project. We can go on to the Phase 2. It was mentioned that we lopped off that 4th floor, which is a huge change. This is what's there, what we showed before. This is the 4th floor. Currently, this has been removed. And we haven't gone through the entire process of designing, every last detail, but basically you just drop that roof down 1 floor, and you'll get basically a 3-story pattern, which you saw on previous elevations. Oh, there it is right there. So again, this entire roof drops by approximately 10 or 11 feet down to where the roof line is consistently 3 stories. The fact that the buildings are now not 3 buildings, but 2 buildings on Phase 2, again, makes them actually a little more compact, a little bit more green space. So you can see what's been changed here. Again, the massing, I think, it improves shadow lines, sight lines, etc. Next one, please. This is the rendering we had before with the 4th floor beyond from the end of the building, building 2. And that just basically goes away. This is now the top of this dark form up here would be the top of the roof line when this goes from a 4-story to a 3-story building. I believe that's shown on the next diagram as well. One more, I think. That's it. So that clouded area just is the removal of the 4th floor roof, and again the absorption down into a more compact 3-story to make that waiver go away. So between these 2 sites, I think we've made. I think we've heard the community. I think we've heard about the desire to make this a little bit more compact. a better parking ratio. And I think architecturally, I think it's headed in the right direction. I think these are going to be very attractive, very positive buildings. And this direction, I think, is the team's response to listen to your comments and respond in accordance with your desires to make this just a little bit more tenable for the community. I think that's it. Yeah, this just shows what was the fourth floor. What you're looking at over here is the roof plan of what was 3 buildings. Basically, we took these 2 buildings and kind of brought them together and got rid of this fourth. So now it's all roof. These are the little condensers on the roof here, and these are the slope roofs and the bays beyond. This building is virtually unchanged. So building 1 now is this kind of L-shaped thing as shown in the previous plan. Building 2 remains pretty much as is. The number of units, as was said, was dropped to a total of 8. These are 8 units here that are gone from the plan. I won't go into the details of the numbers because you've got the overall numbers, but this is the unit mix here is revised to reflect these numbers for the revised building. Again, we have what once was 36 buildings. I'm sorry, 36 units in 5 buildings. We now have 39 in 4, which is what this shows here. Building 1, 2, 3, and 4, for a total of 156. And phase 2 again is basically unchanged. The unit mix is basically the same. Just the units are just rearranged within a different shaped box for phase 1. For building 1, building 2 remains the same. So I think we're going to, unless you have any questions, we're going to move on to the traffic.
And what's the mix between on phase 1 between 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bedroom?
It should be the same. It should be the same as it was before. Let me try to get you the percentages here. Hold on a second. Sorry, this is a little small. It's a little dark in here. I can't quite read this. I'm sorry.
I have a flashlight on my phone if you want.
Why don't I find those numbers and we'll get back to you in the questionnaire.
Okay. You said in the presentation that you kept the distribution part.
Yeah, we haven't changed the mix much.
Your attempt was to keep the mix.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Lower your total.
Yeah, proportionally it should be virtually identical.
I believe is it 25% for 3 bedrooms? 10% per bedroom?
That is unchanged.
So it's still 10%?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 45, 10.
Yep.
So
1, 2s, and 3s.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I, of course, have a question. The ITE number that you mentioned, you said it's 1.23 vehicles per unit. That's kind of broad, but you have 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 1-bedroom units. Somehow they average that or come up with a meaningful number?
Yeah, they came up with an average number for those units. Right. So if you look at your 1-bedroom unit versus your 3-bedroom unit, we're at 45 and 45 for the 1s and 2s. Okay. 45 and 45% versus the 10% for the 3. It would be safe to say that whatever you have for the 3s are going to be offset by the 1s. When you look at the averages, it falls in on the average.
And your point is your 1.5 is better than that, so and above.
Yeah. So again, when we look at the ITE requirement, we provide you 10% more than 10% visitor spaces in addition to the 1.5. When you look at it and you weigh that to the 1.23 under the ITE, it's actually closer to 20%. I did have a slide in there, and it's somewhere, but because of my inability to, and I can go back to it, but basically, Mr. Chairman, what it shows is, as I indicated earlier, in order to get to meet the setback requirements from Route 20 and Stony Hill Road, we had, so if I could, I'm going to try to get back to that slide. In order to meet those setback requirements, we looked at it, pulling those buildings 1 and 3 closer to building 2, closer to buildings 1 and 3, and slightly advancing it further away from. What's that? No, I want to go back up the. I want to go backwards. I want to go back to my site. So basically, what we looked at is another alternative to phase 2, if I can get this. To phase 2, which rather than a 3-building option. It's actually a 2-building option, which I'd like to show that to you if I can find it.
Same number of units?
Same number of units. But the only difference is, what I didn't like about, what are the niceties about requesting that relief, that horizontal dimensional requirement, is it gave me spacing between the buildings, and I know that there's discussion about providing spacing. Is that it? Yep. There it is. Perfect. So what I wanted to do with that dimensional waiver is provide some spacing between buildings 1, 2, and 3. And in order to meet the requirement, it crimps it. I mean, I could pull the whole site further away from the intersection of Route 20 and Stony Hill, which we may end up doing if the board has an issue with this design. So when I look at this design, it has the same number of parking spaces, has the same number of units. The only difference is rather than having 3 buildings, again, it has 2. So what you're looking at is the building, what was formerly Building 2, up near the intersection of Route 20. We've joined the 2, 1 and 2, or the former 1 and 2, and Building 2 currently was formerly Building 3. What that's allowed us to do is have a little bit more of a spatial relationship between buildings, the new buildings 1 and 2. Now, if you look at this, if the concern is, one of the things we looked at is how to do this while not throwing the buildings out onto the Stony Hill Road. We feel that we've been able to accomplish that because we've essentially left the southern end of Building 1, where the original Building 1 was, and the northerly end of Building 1, where the northerly end of Building 2 was. I don't know if that's clear. So essentially, we're able to, we feel, from a visual perspective, we've been able to reorient those buildings and redistribute those units so that they're not, they kind of meet the same purpose as the 3-building option. So that's something that, again, we'd like to throw out there for the board's consideration in lieu of the original option. We could go either way with it.
Has our peer reviewer had the opportunity to see this yet?
No, actually, this just came up over the last couple of days.
Okay.
We came up with this option.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the point that the goal for this board should not be to get the project that has the least amount of waivers. It should be to get the project that has the best site design. So if there's a design that has a technical waiver that's required, but it's a better design, that should be the one the board should be looking at.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm thinking that we go, if I can get this to work the way I'd like it to work, that we go right to traffic with Courtney Jones, who's here on behalf of Nancy Doherty, who's probably drinking a margarita right now. Where we thought, is she Mexico? Yeah, so she's having a ball. I'm going to try to get to Courtney's slides. Courtney, do we have the
Stampede.
got it?
It's the musical. Is it just take it off?
No, there's a little button there.
Are they doing stomp?
Do you want to know what they're doing? I'll tell you.
Please be patient. For every 50 clicks here, it moves one slide.
It's a bit of a dated reference.
It is. All right.
Okay, so for the record, Courtney Jones, Tetra Tech. If you recall, in the December 28th hearing, Nancy Doherty from my office presented to you the results of the traffic study, and she also presented the proposed access plan for both phases of the project. Subsequent to that hearing, the town's peer review consultant reviewed the traffic study and presented their findings at the January hearing, and we believe that those findings were generally positive. However, based on feedback we received from the public at the December hearing, as well as comments received from the peer review consultant, we've decided to go ahead and modify the proposed access plan that was presented to you at the December hearing. Let's go to the next slide. So if you recall, this is what was presented to you at the December hearing. This is, just to orient you, the Route 20 at Stony Hill Road West intersection, and then this parcel right here is the Phase 1 site. What we heard from you was that there were 4 key concerns. One was in relation to the removal of the Route 20 eastbound taper in the southwest quadrant here. The second issue was potential concern about vehicles attempting to exit Stony Hill Road West, not knowing whether vehicles were turning on their right directional or slowing down in the eastbound travel direction to turn right into Stony Hill Road or continue into the deceleration lane, which is right here, to enter Phase 1. We also heard some concerns about possible sightline issues, as well as obviously the lack of a traffic signal. However, we believe we've been able to address most of these concerns with a modified access plan at this location. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this plan here is what we'll call modified option 1. First off, we were able to address the taper issue in this quadrant here. So we were able to rework it to make it more similar to today's geometry to facilitate those right turns entering Stony Hill Road West. We were also able to move the beginning of the deceleration lane into the Phase 1 driveway further east to this point, thereby minimizing that potential confusion for vehicles exiting Stony Hill Road. We did hear some concerns about possible sightline issues. The sightlines out there actually satisfy industry standards today, and they'll actually be enhanced because by us being able to move the deceleration lane further to the east, we're able to push this stop bar on Stony Hill Road further north, thereby enhancing sightlines. But unfortunately, we are unable to provide a traffic signal at this location based on our discussions with Mass DOT. We met with them again on February 2nd of this year, and we presented our original plan to them, the first slide you saw, as well as this slide. And the implementation of a traffic signal at this location has essentially been rejected based on those meetings for several reasons. One, there just isn't enough volume coming out of Stony Hill Road to warrant a traffic signal at this location based on Mass DOT's volume criteria. But most importantly, the 2 main issues are the steep roadway grade on Route 20. You just really don't want vehicles starting and stopping on a hill. And the second major issue is the presence of the auxiliary truck climbing lane. Therefore, we've come up with an alternative plan because we have heard from the residents that they are concerned about delays and queuing, and they feel difficulty making lefts out of this, out of Stony Hill Road at either access point. And although our traffic study did not indicate any safety issues, the public has indicated to us that they feel there are safety concerns. So to be responsive to these concerns, we have developed an alternative plan, if you flip to the next slide, which is to implement a traffic signal at the Route 20 and Stony Hill Road East driveway. So as you can see from this plan, to orient you, right here is Phase 2, and this is the Stony Hill Road East easterly intersection with Route 20. What we would do is we would widen a little bit on the south side here to accommodate 2 through lanes in the eastbound travel direction for approximately 250 feet on either side of the intersection, as well as the introduction of an exclusive westbound left turn lane to enter Stony Hill Road East. We would also provide pedestrian accommodations, including sidewalk along the site frontage, and at Mass DOT's request, a crosswalk across Route 20. Now, based on our discussions with Mass DOT, they would consider a traffic signal at this location, but in order to satisfy the volume criteria to meet a signal, we would need to implement turn restrictions at Stony Hill Road West. So if you flip to the next slide, please. So what you see here, again, this is Stony Hill Road West, and this is the Phase 1 site parcel. So we would have to restrict Stony Hill Road West to right and right out only access. The only exception to this is fire apparatus would be able to turn into Stony Hill Road from either travel direction, but the general vehicular population would only be able to make right turns in and right turns out. And also to accommodate this geometry, we would no longer be able to provide a deceleration lane, if you recall, in this area into Phase 1. So that driveway would be converted to right-out only access. But again, fire apparatus would be able to use that intersection. So we understand that this isn't a perfect solution, but we do feel that both option 1, which maintains full access at Stony Hill Road West but no traffic signal, and the second option, which is traffic signal installation at Stony Hill Road East and plus turn restrictions at Stony Hill Road West, are both viable and appropriate options. But we do understand that although initial feedback from Mass DOT has generally been positive, a more robust review will have to take place with the state as well as the town. But we look forward to hearing your thoughts. We have drafted a memo detailing our analysis of the signalized intersection, which we believe the town is in receipt of, as well as the town's peer review consultant. We believe she will be providing her comments to you at a later date. But we look forward to hearing your opinions. Have a question? Yes. Yes. I have a question. The option 1, the changing the deceleration lane, the original proposal, can you tell me how long that deceleration lane was as opposed to this? My point is the deceleration long enough for those going into the development now that we're moving it past Stony Hill Road? Yes, so if you can see up here, the original plan, the deceleration lane began right at the intersection. So vehicles traveling eastbound in the auxiliary truck climb lane would go straight through and immediately get to choose to go into the deceleration lane. Now it is at this location, and we have shown this plan to Mass DOT, but it's going to go under further review to ensure that it's an appropriate design. Yes, but right now it should be designed according to industry standards. So.
Good, Mr. Chairman. Just for reference, the frontage along that parcel, I believe, along Route 20 is about 800 feet. So if you look at from the intersection of Stony Hill, probably about 500 feet. So if that's 500 feet, you're probably talking maybe a quarter of that is the taper zone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, set right now.
Okay. Moving along, or you?
No, I can't wait to hear from those in the audience.
Yep.
On those options.
Anyone wish to comment? From the audience, yeah.
Should we have traffic peer review engineer? Discuss it?
Yeah, actually.
Let's see here.
Someone from
Yeah.
Conley?
Yeah,
From
do
Conley?
you have any comments or?
Peer review. Eddie's not here. Oh, we should post it.
Okay, perfect. Please state your name for the record. Hey, you.
Dale Martin, 6 Pheasant Hill Drive. So my understanding of the alternative design is that anybody in Phase 1 and anybody that lives in the current neighborhood that wants to make a left turn will have to drive all the way down Stony Hill to the east end to make a left turn.
Yep.
Correct.
The original proposal, I believe that they said that they thought that would be doubling the amount of traffic through the east end intersection. Obviously, this will have more of an impact than that. 2.5 or 3 times it would be my guess, but I think that's a guess. Given that, I'm just wondering a couple things. At that light, would there be a dedicated left turn lane? That's one question.
Along which approach?
From Stony Hill onto Route 20. Otherwise, I can imagine cars queuing up. Like if there's one car that wants to make a left turn, then you have to wait for the green light.
No, actually, there will only be one lane provided. If we provide separate left and right turn lanes, I believe the traffic volume criteria that Mass DOT needs in order to satisfy putting in a signal wouldn't be met.
So I'd be concerned that that would increase the wait time there quite a bit. If there's one car waiting to make a left, everybody wanting to go right would be queuing up there. I was going to suggest
go
that
right the other way, though, right?
you want to have a dedicated left turn lane there, and you want to make sure that you have right turn on red if you wanted to minimize the impact on wait time at that end. And then my other question is the dedicated left turn lane from Route 20 into Stony Hill. How many cars can queue there? Because again, at rush hour, I'd be concerned that the left turn lane would be full, and then you'd have the situation we have now where trucks are going by at 55 miles an hour while you're stuck in that lane.
I believe right now it's designed for 100 feet, but we did receive some preliminary comments from Mass DOT in the last few days where they would like to see that extended. So those details will be fine-tuned through the permitting process.
All right, that's all.
Okay. Good. State your name for the record, please.
Scott Payne, 70 Stony Hill Road. I guess I would just make one comment that's probably not very clear from the traffic studies and the like, is that at the westbound entrance, the way is, as you know, that you see people drive that part of the road currently is it's a two-lane road that starts widening there as you come up the hill to the truck lane. And generally speaking, what people do, I'm not saying it's right, but what they'll do is they look at it as a passing opportunity, truck lane or no truck lane, and so they're generally whipping out beside you as you're trying to slow to turn into our development, and they're gunning it to go up the hill, because if you don't pass slow people going up the hill, you got to merge back into two lanes. So I think that adds an element to a safety aspect and all of any design at that left entrance, at the westerly entrance, that should be considered. Just practically speaking, because of the way the road is widening and narrowing and narrowing and widening again in the number of lanes, people use that. Now you're increasing, no matter what you do there, you're increasing the amount of traffic that's trying to use that part of that acceleration lane there to slow down to turn into either our street or the development, however that works out. So just again, it seems to me a detail that wouldn't necessarily come out in just a study of traffic flow to be considered. The other thing I'd like to point out is the fact that since we are in this segment of Route 20 that's sandwiched in between two four-lane sections, and there's just an overall increase of traffic, there's a lot of development up and down Route 20, it still seems to me that in the very near future, something's going to have to be done to widen the entire road up through there. It doesn't make a lot of logical sense that we're sandwiched in between. We're basically the bottleneck in the traffic flow. So by allowing a lot of this development to go in, and it being, I'm hearing numbers 12 feet, 15 feet off the road, basically there's not enough setback into there to widen the highway. If you look at what's on the other side, either all those businesses are already established and already too close, or there's already development there. There's one of the trucking companies that's built some huge parking lot, giant rock wall thing you see there. So there isn't room to go on to the left side of the street, or however you want to say that, on the opposite side of the street. So I'm not saying it's widening today, but it seems like that somebody ought to take that into consideration. And then the final note I'll say is just all these different traffic variations and what this does to us, having to pick between doubling or tripling the traffic along our street to get this or that, really just, again, speaks to the oversized, outrageous impact that all of this development has on our neighborhood. So why can't we see some investigation of a design from them that gives the two curb cuts from each facility, each location, with their own right turn onlys? If that's all the state allows, that would be all they allow, right? But that more puts the, the pressure of what this development is creating back on the development itself, as opposed to trying to use Stony Hill Road and then the impact it has on all of us as residents. It's much like the earlier case with the people wanting 3 driveways or whatever. What they're really doing was trying to build what doesn't fit, and then basically moving all of the burden onto everyone else. And it's too much, and it's outsized. And they should have to present a design like that that shows right turn only. I mean, for example, there's a development going in on Route 9 right across from the Mexican restaurant there, right by the Honda dealership. That one's right turn only, right? It has to be. There's a Jersey barrier in the way. So clearly, making right turn only and minimizing the impact of these developments onto the development itself is not an unheard of thing. And if that makes the place undesirable for them to rent, well, that really shouldn't be our problem as a neighborhood. We're not the ones trying to profit off of this as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? State your name for the record.
It's Steve Danielson. I guess I looked at his proposal. It was nice. He investigated the light. We would have preferred to have it on the left and west end. By putting a light on the east end and blocking off left-hand turn traffic coming out of Stony Hill, or left turn coming off of 20 into Stony Hill, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to put 156 units at one end, as well as, if I take half the neighborhood, about 85 houses on the west end of Stony Hill. So that means all that traffic, if they need to take a left and you blocked off taking left out of Stony Hill West, now all that 156 units, as well as the west end of Stony Hill, now has to go a mile and a half, or whatever, to go east, just so they can go west on Route 20. And there might be a temptation that people pull out and make an impromptu U-turn or something instead, or make an illegal left turn coming out of Stony Hill, just even though it's divided to block left-hand turns. So you're going to increase the traffic quite a bit through the neighborhood. If it was zoned light industrial like we had, I wouldn't suspect that we'd have all this additional 156 units. So, I guess, that's part of the proposal. But we're going to have a lot of extra traffic that way. So by putting a light there and blocking out some access, so it also, not only for when people want to pull out and take a left onto 20, it now also, people can no longer take, so the 156 units at that end, if they're coming home from work in Boston or whatever, and they're trying to take a left, they have to take a left at that light on the east end and travel a mile and a half through the neighborhood to get to their house, which doesn't make a lot of sense either. So you're now increasing, as well as people that already live in the west end of Stony Hill. So it just increased the traffic flow through, instead of being on Route 20, now you're diverting it onto the neighborhoods and all that additional traffic that we wouldn't necessarily have. So I would have preferred to have the light at the west end. They said, the hills make it difficult. And it would be better, I guess, to not have the light on the east end. That's my preference. My preference actually would have been to have the light on the west end. So I guess my preference would be to at least to still have access in and out of the west end, so you can take a left turn only and try and make that as simple as possible, or not have the scale of size that we have today. I know we reduced it some, but reduce it more. I don't know. Thanks.
State your name for the record.
Peter Ryan, 19 Pleasant Hill. Again, to echo my neighbor's sentiment here. Again, I think this is an example of trying to put a development in an area of land that it just is not designed to hold. I think the biggest, or one of the examples in the presentation that was just given was the issue of crosswalks at the end of Stony Hill. to me, I'm not sure where people are going to walk to on Route 20. Number two, I'm not sure we want people to be walking on Route 20. I think that increases the dangerousness of any traffic plan and the safety, not only of any of us crazy enough.
That's a mass highway condition. That had nothing to do with what's coming out of here. From that perspective, that's a condition out of mass highway.
That there be crosswalks.
The crosswalk, yeah,
in the middle of Route 20.
Yep.
Okay. Well, again, to me, it's a safety issue, whether it's people from the neighborhood or the people that choose to rent in this property. It's just, and then for all of us driving in and out of either of these, of the neighborhood or the property, it's a recipe for disaster. And again, the point I'm trying to make is it's nice that we're trying to analyze all of these different options for something that is not fitting in the area in which it's available.
State your name for the record.
I just have two questions. What's the distance from Stony Hill Road, the east side, to the phase 2? Approximate feet footage? Do you have that?
East side to phase 2.
The east entrance.
The east side is phase 2.
Yeah.
Oh, the entrance?
Yeah, from the road to the buildings, actually. Yeah, but up there, I just didn't.
Yep. Why don't we head there and then...
And the second question was, when you talked to DOT, did you discuss lowering the speed at all in that section of Route 20?
No, we didn't discuss the speeds. That's usually set by Mass DOT. So.
Bear with me, Jeff. Oh, where am I getting Courtney? Right? How about this was cheap?
Courtney, you went to engineering school.
So where did I do this?
Excuse me.
All right, while we try that, you want to, through the chair, I'd like to hear that question again, maybe I'll understand the question.
Sir?
Just the distance from Stony Hill to phase 2.
Stony Hill East?
East.
So that's the distance from Stony Hill to the buildings?
The buildings, yes.
Oh, from the sideline of the layout of the road, 50 feet is what we're proposing now. To the edge of pavement, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, to the edge of pavement, it's a 40-foot layout, so you're probably talking 60-plus feet to the edge of pavement.
Okay.
Paul Josh, 20 Rice Street. In regards to the traffic light, does Mass Highway plan on increasing the speed limit on Route 20?
Not that I'm aware of.
So it will still stay the same?
Yes, it would still stay the same. And the traffic light there, because it is so close to the signal at Centec Boulevard, they'll be coordinated, and that'll be based on the travel speed and everything to have efficient flow through the signal.
State your name for the record.
18 Lord Ave. Do you have any traffic counts of what's going to happen to the interior traffic, Stony Brook and that area now that it's going to be right in, right out only on the western end? Have there been any traffic counts for inside the subdivision yet?
Have we collected traffic counts for the existing?
No, they projected traffic counts based on the new design.
Oh, yes. Actually, we have at the end, if you want to show those slides. Just bear with us 1 minute. 1 minute.
Any chance you can improve technology for the next meeting?
I think one of the things got lowered every other inch before.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there is no computer, it's all on that thing, right? Won't cast our own
So the landscape architects in the office love this thing. I don't know how they do it. Good morning, back. Getting close. Here you go.
That's it?
Oh, yeah, it's somewhere in there. Like an old computer, taking forever to.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so what this graphic represents is the AM peak hour. So this isn't for all hours of the day. This is during, your AM peak period when most people are going to or from work. The orange represents the existing trips, so what we counted during our traffic count. So today at the westerly location, you have about 32 vehicles exiting going to the west and 6 turning right that we think would actually divert through the neighborhood. So the 32 are all the left turns counted, and the 6 represent 25%, about approximately 25% of the right turns, because we heard from the public that some people feel uncomfortable taking left, so they in fact today take right turns and make a U-turn somewhere along Route 20 to go back west. So we estimated that that was about 25% of the right turns at the Stony Hill Road West intersection. So that's about 38 total trips. And then, as you can see right here at the Phase 1 site driveway on Stony Hill Road, you'd have 42 exiting trips and 6 entering trips. So you're talking about 80 trips that would be pushed from the westerly side of the neighborhood to the easterly side to access the signal. So that's about 1 car every minute or so. And that's during the AM peak hour. And if you flip the slide, okay. During the PM peak hour, which again is not all hours of the day, this is during your PM peak when most people are coming home from work. There we go.
Is that it?
Yes. So in the afternoon, you'd have about, for existing traffic, 7 vehicles today that are exiting, turning left on Route 20 that would make their way over to the east side, and about 14 exiting trips from the Phase 1 site, making their way over to the east driveway. And then entering, you'd have about 7 existing vehicles and 48 vehicles attempting to go all the way over to Phase 1. So again, you're on the order of 70 to 80 vehicles. So again, 1 car, additional car every minute.
You're done?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Just clarify for me, my impression that cars coming out of Phase 1 that wanted to go westbound, they're going to go, first they're going to go east through Stony Brook, and then they're going to go up to Route 20. And the reverse will happen when they're coming back in. Plus, that's from the project. Then you've got the neighborhood traffic now that's going to have to go to the eastern end of Stony Brook. And you're saying that there's only going to be 55 additional, well, in the morning I think it was a total of 80. Is that 80 additional in the morning, or was that 80 total?
No, that's 80 total existing traffic that will be rerouted plus the project traffic.
Out of all the apartments in Phase 1 and all of the houses in the back that are going to now go out to Stony Brook East to make a westbound turn, there's going to be that few more vehicles?
Yes, those are based on industry standard trip rates.
Just a
State your name for the record again, please.
Peter Riley, Pheasant Hill. Just for clarification,
You're talking about industry standard, or you're talking about the actual trips that are happening today in the neighborhood?
So the orange numbers there, they represent the actual counted traffic that we believe will, that today use Stony Hill Road West will use Stony Hill Road East. And then the blue numbers, those represent the project traffic. So.
Can you put the 1 hour in the morning up? Because when I leave in the morning, sometimes I'm backed up by 5 or 6 cars in the morning, and you're saying there are only 9 of us leaving in an hour? If that's what I see up there.
That's the.
No, I asked him to put up the morning.
He's trying.
Oh, there you go. Earthquake.
Okay, I'm sorry. Which you're referencing 9 vehicles?
It's 38 now.
So there's 38, but when I leave in the morning today, I assume a peak hour would be like from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.?
We do counts between 7 and 9, and so the peak hour would fall somewhere between there, yes.
Okay. And on a regular basis, the 1 minute that I leave the neighborhood, I'm sometimes backed up 5 or 6 cars to get out of the neighborhood. And you're saying in 1 hour, 38 cars leave phase 1. So either I'm leaving at the worst possible time during that 1 hour period.
No. So we did counts at both Stony Hill Road West and Stony Hill Road East. And so during the morning peak hour coming out of Stony Hill Road West, there was about 32 exiting vehicles and turning left, and about 20 or so turning right, 22 turning right. And so we believe all of the left-turning vehicles will have to turn left at Stony Hill Road East, and about a quarter of the right-turning vehicles, which we believe are making U-turns, those vehicles would also go over to Stony Hill Road East and make a left turn out.
Okay, so when I leave from Stony Hill Road East today, and I'm backed up 5 or 6 cars, what you're saying is if you take all of the traffic coming from Stony Hill West plus the development, you're adding an additional 80 cars, 80 trips.
No, only 42. So the blue.
But the 38 is coming from the other side, or coming from the development. 42 is coming from. I mean, what they said.
Yes. So we're adding 42 that aren't there today, but 38 that are coming out of this location today will be traveling through the neighborhood and coming out here for a total of 80 exiting.
To the phase 2 side.
Yes, 80. So I'm backed up on the phase 2 side already today by 5 cars, and now you're adding 80 more cars at that end. That's outrageous.
We did do a delay study and a queue study out there, and on average, the queues were about just 1 or 2 vehicles on average. We do understand that there might be, like you said, like a 1 minute period of time where there are several cars leaving and you do have those queues, and that would be the maximum queue, which we counted 3 or 4 cars that you're talking about. But really on average through the whole hour, it was really just 1 to 2 cars.
But even if it's only 1 or 2 cars, you're now adding 80 additional trips in an hour.
Yes, so it's about 1 extra car a minute.
Every minute. About a car and a half.
Yeah. Mr. Powell?
Morris Apollo 18 Village. Can you clarify for me, these numbers are these only the numbers that are generated through phase 1 itself? Not, is that what those numbers are? The numbers that you have up there are the numbers that are being generated by the projects itself. Is that right? The additional traffic?
No, the numbers in blue represent the amount of traffic generated by phase 1 that with the implementation of a traffic signal here, because they won't be able to turn left into the site or left out of the site, are going to be traveling through the through the neighborhood.
That's
So it's about half of the total. So the 80 trips would be shifted from this location to this location. About half exists today, and half is due to phase 1.
so that the existing trips in the orange are the existing trips through that are generated by the neighborhood now?
That are generated by the neighborhood now, exiting or entering this location. That because of the turn restrictions that would be required to be implemented here to support a traffic signal at this location, that's the amount of traffic that would be reassigned. So 38 exiting trips occur today. They just occur at the easterly access instead of the westerly access instead of the easterly access.
But if the traffic is going to be set so it's right in and right out only on the west side, don't you have to go back in and study the traffic in the neighborhood and the patterns that are going to change, that are going to push the traffic up to the east?
Well,
don't you have to take that into account? Because right now, some of those cars are going on the west side. If they want to go west, they're going to have to go up on Stony Hill East. So aren't the traffic flows in the subdivision going to change too, from the houses that are already there?
Yes, and that's what this graphic shows. And like I said, during the peak hours, which is usually 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon that we study, you're talking about one or a little more than one extra car a minute.
State your name for the record.
Suzanne Remington, 73 Stony Hill Road. Not to go back to all the numbers that people have talked about, because that's all minutia that people have studied, and we can go into all those little things. But to me, option 1 is bad, and option 2 is bad. They're different bad. So this is not an improvement. This is another effort to cram in a traffic pattern and change it to try to make this project work in our neighborhood. Peak hours in the morning, 7 to 9, that's when our kids are waiting outside for the bus during the week. I realize that peak time in the afternoon is a little bit later than that, but the thought of 80 extra cars, I live right in the sort of middle of the U, of, that many cars going by where my child and other little kids are waiting terrifies me in the morning. So, like a couple of other people said, just saying, oh, we'll just reroute it through here, that's a big deal. And I'm not even just talking about inconvenience, I'm talking about safety. So, again, neither one of these, in my opinion, are acceptable.
Thank you.
Arnie.
Oh, Mr. Gordon.
One of the things I think we're forgetting is this isn't a conventional subdivision. This is a 40B. So we are trying to make it as palatable as we can, but there's not an awful lot we can do. I mean, I am an opponent of 40B, okay? Because what it does is it doesn't help anybody, and basically it never helped anyone. And we have 3 options. We can listen to all of this, and then when we vote, we can vote to accept, or we can put on modifications and vote, or we can turn it down. Those are the 3 things we can do. We're trying to modify it to make it pleasant for you, as pleasant as we can. But this is not a friendly back and forth. We're trying to keep it as friendly as we can. So realize that we're limited as to what we can do, but we will do as much as we can.
Can I add to that? Where do I begin? So, I don't think either of the alternatives are as attractive as the original proposal either. But just to summarize where we're at and to reiterate what Mel said, this may happen. So it's our job to hear from you, all your concerns with the various proposals, and some of the minutia helps too. The original proposal, before this project even came forward, you already have an issue with the traffic the way it is right now. With this project, there is no way that there will be no impact to you, even if they had 2 curb cuts within their property and kept this contained. There would be some impact to you. I think the first traffic proposal talked a little bit about them looking at that. It's great that we heard that tonight, I think, from that gentleman. To go back to that, it would be nice to revisit that and understand what they are proposing, the original proposal before us at the last traffic hearing, two meetings ago, why that was the one that came forward, which means access to your road. There are reasons for that. They now are presenting 2 different proposals to address the concerns you had with those. I don't think either one of them are better, but we need to hear more about the 3 alternatives, basically, and hopefully they'll come back before us and explain why the one the gentleman mentioned there, meaning no access to your road, is not an alternative, if it's not. But keep going. Sorry.
Name for the record, please.
Dale Martin, doesn't help. I just want to point out that plus 80 up there is plus 80 left turn. So again, if there's only 1 lane and it's a traffic light, I would like to know what the queuing study projection would be on that. How long you wear it. I don't know if you've got that.
We have submitted a memo to the town, and the peer review consultant is currently reviewing it, and it will be fine-tuned, as the process goes forward with Mass DOT.
Okay. And then the whole peak hour thing is a mystery to me also, because I've left at 6:20, 6:30 in the morning, and been stuck behind cars at 6:20, 6:30 in the morning. I think our peak hours are probably earlier than a lot of neighborhoods, because people commuting into Boston are going to leave as early as they can to avoid all the traffic on the pike. The school buses are coming through starting at 6:15 is when my daughter gets picked up, and then 6:40, and then the rest of the morning.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, what were those hours again? Just out of curiosity.
Which hours?
The hours that Mr.
So the
6:15
a.m. for the Assabet bus, and then the high school bus is at 6:40, and then they continue after that.
So the peak hours for the folks in the development were between 6:15 and 6:30?
No, I'm not saying.
No.
I'm saying that it's
just that it starts a little earlier than what you tested for. Did you state your name for the record, please?
Jose Reyes, 5 Estel Drive. As Mr. Sarshoni said earlier, you mentioned that the board's job is to select the best design, not the one with the least number of
waivers.
Waivers, yeah.
I'm hoping that, I guess, the impact on us goes into your definition of best. Earlier, I was a little confused. They suggested phase 2 would have 9 less, and then it went to an L-shaped design.
Phase 2, I believe, is 8 less.
8 less, I'm sorry. 8 less, and then an L-shaped design with the same number of units. I mean, I don't care if it's L-shaped or whatever. Like, I will take fewer floors, fewer units, everything else being equal. I have a question. Supposing because I go to parking lots after a snowstorm, I see piles of snow which eats up parking slots. So if we were, I wanted to reiterate what my neighbors have said about how, I guess, crammed or overdeveloped this plan is. I'm thinking, well, what if there's a 2-foot snowstorm? Where's all that snow going to go? I am wondering whether they'll be able to get rid of it, given the number of units, whether there will be overflow into Stony Hill for parking.
As I said at the last hearing, Mr. Chairman, I mean, it's typical of any type of development like this. There's a snow management plan that's implemented. If in the case like last year, there's too much snow on the site, they would haul it off the site. It's no different from any other site like this.
State your name for the record.
Joe Taylor, 132 Stony Hill. I had a question. Courtney, I'm sorry, I don't remember the last name. Question for Courtney, and then I had a couple of comments. So my first question is, a couple of hearings ago, we had, your firm did a nice traffic study. Gave us a nice chart about why it was not possible to put a light up. Because it said you have to have 8 hours out of 24, you had to have peak traffic for so many hours a day, right? And now you seem to be contradicting yourself. You seem to be saying, well, now it doesn't really matter. We'll put one on the other side. So that's my question is, I don't care how many cars go at peak hour, you don't have enough hours in a day, from what I understand, from the Mass DOT's own requirements for a while. We still don't need it because of the hours in a day. That's the question. Dale already made my other comment, which is, not only are there 80 cars coming to phase 2, they're all left-turn cars, right? So Dale already thought, that was another thought there. And the last comment I want to make with you about every traffic study, coming left turns out of the west end on phase 1 in the evening. You know why it's so low? Has anybody asked you why? You know why? Because it's impossible. When you, in the evening, the peak hour, it is a bumper-to-bumper line of cars coming down 20, coming down the hill. I don't even try. You literally cannot make a left turn out of that for about 90 minutes a day. Cannot make a left turn. It's not possible. So you have to make a right and then do a U-turn. That's why your traffic studies in the evening are flawed. Dale already brought up the other comment about the traffic study not being early enough in the day. It should go from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. And in the evening should go 4 to 7. And if you did that, and you did it for a week and not one day, you would see that we're not being hysterical neighbors. The facts should bear out what we're all saying to you anecdotally. I'd like you to prove it. Okay, so can you please address my question now about why all of a sudden you don't have to show the traffic volume in 8 hours over a day?
Oh, yes, of course. So essentially when we first came in and we went to Mass DOT and we talked to them about putting in a traffic signal at that location, like I said, there's, which you correct when you reiterated that there just wasn't enough volume coming out of Stony Hill Road. So we developed option 1, which is we feel is an appropriate and viable option. However, based on concerns we received from the public, we said, what can we do to get a traffic signal in there? And Mass DOT indicated that the only location they would consider out of putting it at Stony Hill Road West or Stony Hill Road East is only at the Easterleaf location because it's more level. You don't have the auxiliary truck climbing lane. But to get the volume criteria met, that's when we had to implement the turn restrictions. So we couldn't do it the other way around because they're not willing to consider a traffic signal at the westerly location. And traffic studies, we did do it based on Mass DOT's guidelines. And basically the peak hours, which is the peak hours for both the combination of the side street and the main road, it's usually 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, which the peer review consultant had also found acceptable.
But you didn't answer my question. How come all of a sudden you don't have to meet that 8-hour day restriction?
Oh, we do. In order to meet that criteria, you do get enough volume to meet, I believe it's 9 hours of the day if you do implement the turn restriction.
Oh, it does meet it.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's the reason
because you're
have
directing
to do
more
it.
traffic there.
Yeah, so that's why there's two
I thought
parts.
it was only going to still only be really concentrated during peak hours, and you weren't going to meet all those hours of the day.
No. We would need at least 8 hours. Like I said, I believe it's 9 hours.
Okay, so now you're saying to me that the volume on the phase 2 is going to be that much greater all day long.
No, it's just that, as I mentioned before, it's not just the phase 1 traffic, it's the reassignment of the traffic that exists today.
I understand.
That's coming through.
I get it. What I'm saying to you, what you're telling me now is, you have now telling us that there's enough traffic flow out of the east end for 8 hours a day now to warrant a light. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so that's where the trade-off is.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have a light.
Did you, Ken? No? Go ahead, state your name for the record.
Scott Denny, 70 Stony Hill Road. Just as an example that I see from this about how just strictly playing with traffic numbers can be misleading and how this goes. For example, if you did put a traffic light in there at the Phase 2 site, I would think what would happen is there would be enough backup at that light extending back westerly down Route 20 that the Phase 2 entrance would basically, its direct entrance would become unusable. So now all of that traffic is going to have to filter back out on the Stony Hill and back out onto the road. So I'm just putting that out there as examples of how just strictly playing with numbers from a traffic count study really doesn't take into account the overall impact. You might get first order effects, but you're going to miss a lot of the second order effects. And those second order effects are the ones that we are all going to have to live with. And I understand, again, put it on one end, put it on the other, you got trouble. The other thing I would add to this, just as a point of reference, is to say, one of the great strengths of our neighborhood is it's such a large neighborhood. It's very well self-contained. And again, it gets back to speaking to the size and the impact of this development on our neighborhood greatly changes its character. That should be something worth worth using as conditionals to say you can't impact us as a neighborhood. You can't so radically change our own living environment just because of this. If you can self-contain it, if you can push it back onto Route 20. Route 20 is a public highway. We all have to deal with that. Stony Hill Road and the strength of that entire neighborhood is built around the fact that it's so large and it is self-contained. And then another thing that was said that I thought was very curious, there was a comment made about the fact that when developments are normally done, that developers generally leave an access point for the next neighborhood. And it struck me as very funny, and I had to think about it for a while, but there actually is one vacant lot in the back end of our development, very oddly never been built. And there is a lot of land else back there on the other side, heading down towards the train station there. So, is this just the prelude? Are we leading up to other things?
The only thing we're talking about here is
I understand.
And that lot, those two lots for the 40B project.
All right, well, just give those examples of how just strictly playing the traffic numbers really never tells the entire case of what the impact of all this traffic is on the neighborhood, on Route 20 itself, the businesses across the street from us. Those are all big, heavy trucks. They're really slow and awkward getting in and out. We're not even hearing from those folks. But I'm sure they'll have something to say when they realize their drivers have to contend with this much extra traffic as well.
No, they've been notified, so. State name for the record, please.
Yes, Ken Mannion, 74 Summer Street. Those numbers in red reflect the reduced number of units?
No, they do not.
So the numbers would be somewhat less than that.
That is correct. Yeah, these I believe represent the 280 units, so they would be a little bit less. Yeah.
It has been my experience that although it's painful at first, in the long run, a light there on the east end is going to be better and safer for everybody. Even though you might not like it right now, in the long run, it's going to be safer for everybody.
The red numbers are not changing. The red numbers are the existing.
Excuse me, Peter. Go ahead, Frank.
Mr. Chairman, Franzaretti. I was pretty quiet this evening and listening to all the data and the dialogue. The issue of the light was brought up numerous times by the neighborhood when we started this project. And it was impossible to get a light. We tried to get a light. We have an option now in the traffic, the initial baseline traffic, that we could have proposed and went with that, and the state was happy with that. Hearing all the conflicts on the west side of the project, and people saying it time and time and time again, that they want a traffic light, they want a traffic light. I gave my team a very difficult task to look at this logistically and to deal with the state, who doesn't want a traffic light on Route 20, they have enough of them, to look at this very objectively in the case of safety because of the issues. I saw pictures of snow at that intersection that the neighbors brought in the last meeting, and how they don't plow the snow, and how dangerous it is. Their children drive out to the left, and it's very dangerous. They tell them to go the other way and come out to the right, and to make turns and go back. So logistically, a lot of people are trying to avoid that left right now that live in the neighborhood without this project because they feel it's unsafe, even though the crash data doesn't justify that. So I challenge my team and spend an odd amount of time and money to look at a traffic light to adjust the concerns of the people in the neighborhood and in the town. This neighborhood is very unique because it has a town road, not a private road. It's a public street. And only the residents that live there have traffic there. Everyone else in town that has streets, other than a cul-de-sac, there's other traffic going through the street behind your house that people are not living there. The intention was not to juggle the numbers, was not to try to pull anything about making the numbers work and making the numbers work. The traffic signal, the improvements on Route 20 is going to cost me over $1 million to make that improvement for the safety of this area. Now, we made the baseline option, and we finally could figure out a way to put the traffic light in for the people, more so of the neighborhood as well as the new residents of this development. We're not forcing it on the people, we're not forcing it on the town, the state. We spent a lot of time with DOT. They weren't convinced with this. We have to synchronize the lights at Centec Boulevard to make this work. It's a very sophisticated project, and it's very costly. But we feel, and I feel, that it is a safer overall long-term solution to the problem that exists there now and what the potential problem people are saying that could happen with the development. It's not ideal. There are some changes that have to be made. But I think you look at the plus and minuses, and it's up to the board to make the final decision with the town of what we want to do. But at least we're giving you two options now that we didn't have before to try to look at this whole thing in terms of the global safety and the long-term results of this. A lot of this is peak hour traffic, and during the day, there's very little traffic in the neighborhood, regardless of what development part it's coming from. And people can't get out there now in queues because there's no light. If there's a light there, they'll probably have a better chance of getting out, because right now, without any light, they can't get out. So it gives them an opportunity to get out that they don't have now. So you've got to look at everything in a global sense here and see what the net benefit would be. And I'm willing to go either way to try to do this. I've taken the initiative to reduce the number of units. We started off at 300 units, which was approved by Mass Housing, with our project eligibility letter. We're down to 248 units. I did that unilaterally because I feel I'm a resident of town. Another thing, reducing the number of units, was I met with Joe Sawyer last month, and I had a nice discussion with him. And he gave me I asked him, I don't know anything about the system that he operates. He gave me the definitions of what's happening. I want to understand your problems. He told me about the topology of the system. He told me about the demographics and logistics. And he said, is there anything you can do as a resident of town rather than a developer to reduce the number of units? Would you consider that? And I said to Joe that I would. And I did consider it because we took off the additional 52 units. So I'm trying to work beyond the means and beyond the realm of what 40B is all about as a resident of this town. And I'm trying to work this out. We spent a lot of time and effort. We know people don't like it, but the town required affordable housing. It's in the master plan. Governor Baker said it in the State of the Union. They need more affordable housing. The town's below that. We're trying to work in a friendly manner to do this. And I know we're always going to get negativity. It is what it is. But as the board said, we try to work out the best solution, the best deal for everyone, and that's what the spirit that I'm trying to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just as to address, you say it's a friendly, but it was not done with the local initiative with the LIP as a friendly 40B would have done, as has been done in the past. My comment is this is a project, and I appreciate what the residents of Stony Hill are going through and what they probably will have to go through, but this is a project that probably only 3 people in town want. And That's pretty much what we're going to have to live with. But it is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a friendly 40B, which is defined by statute. And you are definitely not living up to that statute of what a friendly 40B is.
Mr. Chairman, we filed under lip, and we didn't have the opportunity to work out the project with the town. They picked another project that didn't work. I don't want to go back there. We already discussed that, okay? But as far as I'm concerned, the concessions I'm making usually are not made under an unfriendly 40B. And unfriendly is just a coined phrase. It's not in the definition of what it is. But I'm working towards that end, and I always have because I'm a resident of the town. Now, someone might perceive that different. That's fine. But I am making concessions as I would not have to do if it was a totally unfriendly 40B.
Anybody else? State your name for the record, please.
My name is Wen Xuanguo. I live at 93 Stone Hill Road. So, two concerns. One, I used to live in Knoxboro in an apartment complex. And during those years, we had a huge snowstorm. And you know how they do the snow plowing? You know, we have to forward our residents of the apartment complex have to coordinate, and when the plowing truck comes, they come knock at our doors, and we have to drive the car out of our parking lot to neighboring street. And imagine, in the future there will, snowstorms, and I can totally imagine all these cars in the parking lot will be coming out of their parking lot and find spots on Stony Hill Road, and that could run all the way. I don't know how many cars will there be, but that would totally fill up the whole road. That's one thing, and I would assume I think it would be better if the place has some space where they can put the snow together, plowing the snow together, like what most of the commercial parking lot has, which is they plowing all the snow together into one space so that they can melt it down. The snow can melt down there. So that's one thing. I suggest that those spaces need to kind of have a space where they can put the snow there.
But that will be
that's
put into the
something
design.
I'm thinking.
Yep.
And secondly, when there's one traffic light, and all these cars are forcing eastwards, who wants to go left goes to the left, right? And in case there might be huge backup, it's not only about the traffic going to the right, to the eastbound. It's also about the eastbound neighbors who have problem trying to get into the queue, well, forced to go to the westbound because they want to go eastbound. So it's not only traffic towards the eastbound, but also traffic towards westbound.
Yep.
Because there are neighbors who are frustrated about the queue trying to go east, that they have to force the way to the west end. So, and in the end, it's just going to be, I don't know how to describe that situation, but it's terrible.
Yep. Thank you. Is anyone who has not spoken? So, Peter, go ahead.
Peter. Again, I just want to make the statement that at least personally, and I think on the part of the town, we all recognize the situation we are in with affordable housing in Shrewsbury. Our issue is, my issue, I won't speak on behalf of the neighborhood, but my issue is not that this is a 40B development. It is the size of the development on the plots of land that they are trying to occupy. And I just want to put that out there from that standpoint.
Okay.
I just
state your name again.
Oh, sorry, Steve Danielson. So I just wanted to restate. I mean, there are some things that are safer about having a light, although it's not in place. I like it, but by having the light on the east side, it just doesn't have the natural flow of traffic that you would have if you had it on the western side. So the safety issues, just 2 points about safety, is that typically people are going to work, if they're on the western side and they're 152 units, they tend to speed through the neighborhood to get to that light. Mm-hmm. And speeding through the neighborhood is a concern, so that's a safety issue. And the other safety issue is that if they're not speeding through the neighborhood, they'll take the right and they'll take that, figure out a place to do a U-turn on Route 20 somewhere, all the 152 apartments, because it's way too far for them to go all the way to the light. They'll just end up taking a right and doing a U-turn on 20. that's sort of the other safety issue. So it's sort of those 2 points, and either one of these solutions is very good.
As we've said, there's no good solution here. Anybody else in the back row?
Jeff, may I? Have you figured out if you're going to do both phases at the same time, or do phase 1 and see how that works?
Mr. Chairman, that will be market-driven.
What was the answer?
It will be market-driven. Anybody else?
David Sherry, Stony Hill Road. So you heard a lot of opposition tonight to the new traffic designs, right? I'm assuming that there's probably going to be a hope for more that will try to even make it better. How are you going to finalize your decision?
It's not going to happen tonight, but
It won't be tonight, but how do you go about doing that?
our peer reviewer is going to weigh in at some point, probably at the next meeting, I believe. So traffic is still an open-ended question.
So it may continue on.
Yep.
The other problem we have is this whole thing has to be wrapped up in 180 days.
Unless you have sign-off from the developer to allow it to extend, correct?
Yes.
Does that look like that's going to happen beyond the 180?
I have no
We'll
idea.
meet the 180 days, yeah. Anybody else?
Jose Reyes,
Just state your name again. So.
Jose Reyes. Am I right that this thing on the screen does not include phase 2 trips?
Correct, because what this represents is just the amount of traffic that will be reassigned from Stony Hill Road West through the neighborhood. The phase 2 traffic won't go through the neighborhood. It's their driveway will be here and here. So this traffic right here just represents this point and this point here.
But you would have phase 2 traffic turning left, and they'd have
Yes, so the traffic signal warrant analysis to determine if there's enough volume here to warrant a traffic signal did include the phase 2 traffic.
So that plus, just to clarify, that plus 80, is that inclusive of phase 2 traffic?
No, it's exclusive. So the plus 80 exiting just means that today there's 38 vehicles that are turning left or right out of the westerly access point that will now drive through the neighborhood and exit out the easterly driveway, and 42 trips from phase 1 that would exit out through the neighborhood.
And if I do the math, you'd have another 30 trips from phase 2 turning left?
Good question.
Because those living in phase 2, if they want to head west, they would have to exit through the side through Stony Hill.
Correct. So that is about, you have about 32 trips, actually, you'd have about 60 trips total, 32 from phase 2 and 42 from phase 1. So 32 would come out and take a left and
So
a left
that's
here.
112. So that's an additional 2 cars per hour. Per minute. I'm sorry.
No.
No, incremental.
No, the incremental increases 32 from phase 2 and 42 from phase 1 for a total of 74. So that's about an extra car a minute from the project alone, plus the 38 trips exiting out of the westerly driveway today, plus the existing traffic that's turning left out of this location. And with all of that traffic, you would meet a traffic signal warrant.
Mr. Gordon mentioned that, or earlier, that one of the options is to approve with conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Could some of the conditions be, shall we say, contingent? So for instance, if, let's say, these projections turn out to be, I guess, if these projections turn out to be significantly lower than the reality, can we have mitigation?
Once it's done, it's done.
So
Whatever conditions we put in at the time we make our decision or what the conditions are.
And the conditions cannot be contingent on future
No.
No.
Ronnie?
Yes, sir.
Franny, I'm just curious, who's going to build this?
I have no idea at this point.
But it's not you.
No, I didn't say it wasn't me.
No.
It could be a joint venture, it could be a sundry of different.
But it
development
could be
scenarios.
somebody we haven't seen yet. That's possible too.
Anything is possible now.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have just one more question.
State your name for the record.
Dave McCurry.
Okay.
Discussions with Mass DOT, are they all done? Are there more to be had to still try to
I
work out anything?
believe that's an ongoing process.
It is an ongoing
Yeah.
process, yes.
Question.
Go ahead.
On the, in summary, the state's okay with putting a light on the east end because you prevent the left-hand turns on the west end.
Right. You have to put a bottleneck.
Right, so the state says it's okay if we make one problem, then we can fix it this way. That's what they're saying, right? Make a problem, make it worse, and then
No.
we can have a light.
I wouldn't put it in those terms. It's the restrictions at the westerly access are because there's not enough volume to trigger a traffic signal installation at the easterly access. So if, that's really wanted, that's
Right,
the
but
trade-off.
and this isn't to you, this is really about the state. Can't the state say, hey, well, okay, so you don't quite meet it, but let's not make it worse while we're trying to make it better?
Well, it's interesting because we've had quite a bit of dialogue with the state, and they were pretty firm in meeting that requirement. Frustrating. But again, they're just going by the federal standards and state standards.
Right, but basically they've said, if you screw it up over here, then we can fix it here.
Well, they're not exactly fixing it. Yeah.
And that's how I see it.
I don't think they said that, but they have their criteria, and the appellate
I
has
follow.
control.
I follow, but I
over
feel
only so
the
much.
frustration
Exactly.
that the plan,
But everybody has.
the first plan was lousy, and the second plan is, well, it's kind of, sort of, a little better. We get to make a safe left turn, but we have to put 100 people through the neighborhood at peak hours to make that happen.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know that when this first came up, when the discussion first came up on that cold day in February 2015, that was one of the things that Rod St. Pierre had said. Why don't we just put up a light?
Right.
And quite honestly, no disrespect to Mr. St. Pierre, but he didn't understand. So we had to drag him to MassDOT and say, tell him why we can't put up a light. And it was, and again, it wasn't until then. So we wanted to do it. We wanted to do it from day one, as soon as we started.
I get that. I'm just expressing my frustration.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
State your name for the record, please.
Chris Snoddy, 95 Stony Hill. Two questions. We talked about a 180-day window. Can you give me a better understanding of when that spectrum is?
I believe the 180 days up sometime in May.
Well, the clock started on the first day of the public hearing, which was December 14th. So the 180 days puts us into mid-June.
And then question number two. I thought I remember talking or hearing about with the traffic study about lights being spaced a distance apart and how the state was hesitant to have that happen. We have one at where the Seasons gas station is.
Centec Boulevard.
Centec. And I'm wondering, is there an issue? My concern is, will this light actually appear if this development happens, or are we being...
It depends on what we end up doing with...
And we know we
right.
no guarantee.
It's an option at this point in time. Anybody else? State your name for the record.
93 Stony Hill Road. I have a question about the light. So I think the interval of the lights greatly affects the queue length. Whether if it's the equivalence in terms of the length of the green light and the length of the red light, or is it like we have to wait 2 minutes before a 10 minutes green light?
Oh, yeah, so the cycle lengths and then the splits, which are the amount of green and yellow and red that each phase will get. It's going to be, we propose right now a three-phase signal, so the westbound left turns entering Stony Hill Road East would be protected, so they'd be protected, and then the throughs go, and then the side street. But that all will be fine-tuned with Mass DOT, and because it most likely will be coordinated with the signal at Centec Boulevard where the Four Seasons gas station is, that could also dictate the cycle length. So that's something that will be hammered out, as the process goes on.
State your name for the record.
Steve Danielson. You mentioned that the West End light, they wouldn't talk about putting a light because of the hill and the slope. Just was curious, how does that compare? He generally give me a sense of, how does it compare with the South Street light, which is also on a hill and a slope?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know the history behind it. Each traffic signal installation, is its own animal, so to speak. So I don't know the history why they allowed it there. All I know is that this is a really undesirable location at the westerly access based on their discussion. So, I can understand where you're coming from, but
I don't know if it makes sense at some point to just kind of tell me maybe the next meeting just to see what is the grade and how does it compare to the South Street one, and if that may be a difference is why we can do the same thing since they already have that.
I'm not sure if there's any hard set rule about the grade. The grade is just in Mass DOT's hands at that point.
So it's just subjective. They don't have guidelines, I guess, that they need to follow.
I'm sure they do. We could try to get more information.
Tell me the some streets with me forever.
Mr. Paulo.
Is this traffic light, Mass Highway has to approve the traffic plan, correct? On Route 20 and the entrance and exit. So if this went through as it is, and they approve the light on the east end of Stony Brook, it would have to be built as part of the project, correct? Is it going to be built as part of phase 1? Is that going to trigger it? Or does phase 2 have to be built to trigger it?
At this point, we've only looked at the combined, because right now the project is being proposed as a total of two-phase project, so we look at the total project. As far as the phasing.
No, but if only phase 1 gets built, it's going to be built phase 1 first, and then phase 2 after phase 1 is built out, correct? So, once phase 1 is built, or concurrent with that, does the light go in on the east side of Stony Brook, or does the light go in after phase 1 is done and phase 2 is done?
Mr. Chairman, a good question. My assumption would be there's a certain trigger point that the light would have to be put in, and normally it would probably be, if either one of the phases were built and the other one was never built, I'm assuming that the traffic light would not be put in. I think to meet the warrant, you need the total volume of traffic to do that. As you noticed, Boston Hill, where the Y is, they had a traffic light proposed there for 10 years now, and it never was put in because it was never fully developed, and there's only right in and right out and the same type of thing. But once I think that project gets a little further along, the traffic light will be triggered there, so I think it's analogous to this.
I hope not.
Jose Reyes. Just to be clear, who owns the decision between option 1 and option 2, the deceleration lane or the traffic light? Is it the developer? Is it the Board of Appeals? Is it the
It could be one of our conditions.
Okay.
Depending on which way
So it's the board's decision.
Ultimately, it's DOT gets to choose what is done on their road, but if they're indicating that they would accept either proposal, then I think that would be an appropriate condition for the board to choose which one they prefer.
Thank you.
State your name for the record.
So I have a question for Mrs. Johnson. I wonder, you said that when we push all traffic through the east side, we satisfy the criteria. I wonder how much do we go about the trigger? Do we go about the lot? Do we go for legal?
Yeah, on some hours, I believe it's relatively close to the minimum by only a few vehicles, I believe. Some hours, especially the morning peak period, the first few hours, when people are going to work, it's much higher, but I believe in the middle of the day, it's just on the border.
Another question I had is, I saw there are places, intersections with flashing lights, like on the main road there's the yellow flashing light, and the other direction is red flashing. I wonder if that's also a possible option.
Flashing warning beacons are subject to industry standard criteria as well, and obviously Mass DOT approval for that, so that would have to be a Mass DOT decision.
I was present at those meetings as Fran was, and what we heard from MassDOT is they were not in favor of the flashing.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
I have another comment is, I used to go to YMCA, where it's also right turn only when you exit, and sometimes I saw people just illegally turn left because there's no police, and you have to go all the way to the right, which is such a hassle. And I wonder, I can definitely see people doing the same thing here on the rest of the sand. And the people doing that, and there were a lot of people trying to go right on the west end, and will be totally blocked out by one guy who's trying to turn left. So that's something you could have.
Yep.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm hopping in a Courtney, but Courtney, isn't that the reason that if we're looking at the signalization to the east, that we created the mountable island, mountable for fire vehicles?
Yes, it would be mountable for fire apparatus to come in, but it's going to be designed to try to really restrict people from doing that. And if someone, takes that risk, that's an enforcement issue, unfortunately, but it will be designed to prevent that.
So that curb height, when somebody goes to make a maneuver like that, would that be analogous to just driving over a regular curb in height? Are we talking 4 to 6 inch curb? So if somebody wants to just hop a curb, that's basically what they would do to make that move.
Yeah, I'd have to do a little more research to see if that.
They won't hop the curb. They just do a practical 180
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
But you're right. They take their life into their own hands, but they do.
Yeah, they just trying to pull it out, totally block the whole way. There's no chance for people trying to.
Yep. State your name for the record.
Brian Hansen. I was just curious if we ever had stop signs at either end of these going on at 20, but currently there's no stop signs.
I have no idea.
I walk my dog every morning, so I see visibility that's not there. I was just curious.
If you want stop signs, you want to talk to the road commissioners.
I'm just curious.
Stop sign, you can put on a light.
Right. I don't think anyone knows the answer. Anybody else? Okay. Anyone else up here have anything?
I'm fine.
Anything you want to close with?
And I'm
Before we
exhausted.
continue, we're going to continue date certain to March 21st, 7 p.m.
Ron, do you want to just see what Carol thought? Just if she wants.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any?
No, I'm okay. It was more of I don't think they knew what it was talking about tonight.
Okay.
I think you had said you're going to submit some additional stuff for the water purpose. You have a different study that hasn't been submitted yet because there wasn't much in the initial submittal.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, what we'd like to do on the next meeting, obviously, is based on our notes this evening, anything that we had on site, anything we had traffic, we'll address that. With the reduction of the units, we have to change our report on the sewerage and on the water, reduce it, and then submit them right away to the town to have the peer review for that. So maybe by next month, we'll have that part done as well, to go over those as well and try to consolidate everything.
So the next meeting will be 7 p.m., March 21st, Monday night. At which room? Michelle, which room?
In the
Selectmen's room.
Is that a meeting just on the 40B?
Just on 40B, nothing else.
Okay. 7 o'clock.
We'll have our regular meeting about a week later, I believe.
Yes, this is regular meeting.
Which will have both.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a no, we still have some old business and new business.
New business.
I know, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's all public.
Yeah, they are.
Come on now.
And we have to unplug the No, we're not really done yet, right?
We're not done.
I'm just unplugging for him.
If you guys can carry the conversation outside, because we still have a meeting to conduct.
You want to stick around?
What's that?
Do you need me to stick around?
Thank you.
What do we got left to do?
We have new business.
New business.
What new business?
We don't know. And then we have old business master plan update. With our talented young Matthew will be giving us an update. And correspondence, which I believe is
Okay, guys, are we going to keep meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to wait for some of the...
Wayne, is that yours also? I just unplugged it.
I'm sorry I didn't have so much to say tonight. Nope. Nothing new from my end. Catch you on the next one. Okay. Thank you.
She ran out of ink.
New business?
Yeah, she had to write everything down.
Yeah.
She's the peer reviewer.
I'm virtual Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, new business. Anything?
There's nothing.
New business. It's up to you. The letter that we've received from Maura
About targeted zoning.
Targeted zoning.
We'll talk about that next meeting because it's not technically on the agenda.
Okay, so it can't be on as part of new business. Okay. Old business master plan update.
Yep, sure. So the master plan committee gave a presentation to the Board of Selectmen on February 23rd, just to get to alert them of how it's progressed and to get any final feedback from the board. And at the March 3rd, so Thursday, planning board meeting, the master plan committee will be asking the planning board to adopt the master plan as it's drafted.
Okay.
Very good.
And from there, we'll start with implementation.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone have anything else?
It's my Shrewsbury week.
Okay. Busy week. Can I get a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Can I get a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye. 9:40.